New York City, Atlantic Canada, Denver, Colorado, New Jersey. Who else?
We are live now. Hello, everyone.
Thank you. So I will start to share my screen in meantime. And we will give another few minutes for everybody to join. And we'll go from there. So let's see.
Is my partner Carol here?
I don't know.
Yes, I'm here.
Oh, great.
Puff, you have somebody asking chat. I thought you could be from Holland.
Yes, I am.
Yeah?
Yeah.
You got it.
I'm a.
Go ahead. Anyone else wants to unmute to say something? Soon we will start and everybody will have to unmute themselves. So if you want to say something.
I just wanted to say that I really like Paul's background. The stuff in the back, it's really cool.
Me too. I think everybody else. Yeah, I think Paul is doing a lot of things there. I saw in Twitter. I don't know if he wants to tell us about it. Something like.
Yeah. We just have backgrounds when we record videos, so it's not just a plain white background. So I've got flags from different places I've visited and a bunch of space stuff and little things.
Nice. It's so nice to see you again with us. And thank you for introducing us to Puff.
Oh, yeah. Oh, we'll see if you thank me after you've actually met him for a little bit.
Well, you know,
Not too early.
Externally, we keep up the myth that I'm a nice guy, right? I'm going to switch headphones, by the way, so I might not hear you for a few moments.
Okay. So Hannah, be ready. Like in 2 minutes, I will hand it over to you. Okay.
Right. Perfect.
Thank you. Let's see what else is in chat. Okay, perfect. To ask questions, Anna just posted the link for you if you have any questions. In chat, just write from where you are joining us so we have an idea about our geographic area. We know that it's like international, but just as a confirmation.
Hey, quick chat from my side. Can everyone still hear me?
Yeah.
Okay. Somehow the local screen suddenly says that my microphone is off, so hence the double check.
Ah, okay, perfect. Miami, Florida, we see here also. New York City. India, Boston, Massachusetts. Hi guys, we have another, we are almost there. Ethiopia, great.
Hey, a nephew of mine just showed up in the chat.
Okay, so you are, they are checking on you. Good. They are checking on you, Frank.
Yes, has never been to any of my conferences, but shows up here. It's fun.
Okay, the last shout out quickly: Ethiopia, Boston, Las Vegas, Nevada, Syracuse, New York, Germany, Canada, Ann Arbor, MI, I don't know what it is. I'm sorry, guys. I don't know all.
Michigan.
Michigan. I don't know geography. I'm still learning. Salamanca, Spain, India, Salamanca. Yeah. Okay, and now I will head it over to Hannah, and I will mute myself. I leave you in her hands.
All right, welcome all. Thank you so much for attending. We're really excited to kind of get things kicked off and started. And with COVID and everything and uncertain times that are kind of like, you know, what we're in the midst of, but it's actually, I think, brought us all closer together. We actually have more GDG leads from all over the world getting together and host these events. So it's been really fun just to get to know all these new GDG leads that I was not familiar with, but I have heard of. So yes, so anyway, that's been kind of cool to watch. So anyway, let's quickly get into some etiquette. We just want to remind you all that to turn off your video camera during the workshop, just to encourage like, you know, or actually turn it on to encourage like face-to-face meeting or interactions. Also, if you are not talking, please keep your mic muted, just so when Frank is talking, it will just be a little bit easier for him to, you know, do his presentation. We do encourage inclusivity. We have like a code of conduct that you must follow because it's really important for us to all, you know, get along. Next, if you do want to ask questions, there is a link that we just posted on Slido. So yeah, go there, post a question. If you want to do more like interactions and socialize, just go into the Meetup link that we have right here and post, you know, those interactions there in that chat. Also, just to remind you all that this Meetup is going to be recorded. So if you don't want to be, you know, recorded, you can just, you know, put yourself on mute or change your name too. So other things to keep in mind is there might be some technical difficulties or interruptions during this. So just please be aware of that and be patient. All right, also, if you want to advertise this on social media, you're more than welcome to. You can go on LinkedIn, Facebook, Twitter, Instagram. Some of the common hashtags to use are GDG, WTM, and Firebase. All right, so this is basically the agenda. So from 12 and 12:30, we'll actually have the opening remarks, meetup announcements, what we're doing right now. 12:30 to 1:30, we'll have like Frank give his presentation. And then the last part will be just like Q&A. So if you have like any questions, Frank is definitely going to be there to answer any of them. And then from 2 until 2:30, we'll have a raffle. And then you'll get to win a prize. So that will be super exciting. And then at the very, very last 30 minutes, we're going to have the wrap up and any closing comments for you all. All right. So in case you have any questions, like I mentioned before, you can actually post any of those in the Slido link. Again, we'll probably throughout the whole presentation definitely be posting that link there, so you have it, you know, at hand. So yeah, there you go. And then also, of course, we want to give a big shout out to all of the GDG organizers and leads who actually helped a ton putting on this event. So again, thank you all so much for that. Really appreciate it. All right, and then of course, you can see all of the attendees that we have from all over the world. So total, we have like 618 people who have RSVP'd, so that's amazing. So thank you all for coming out to this event and learning how to use StackBlitz and Firebase with Frank. All right, and of course, these are all of our sponsors. So we want to thank them so much for helping us out with this event, as of course, we couldn't have done it without our lovely sponsors. Yes, and then I think we hand this off to Carol, right? Carol?
Yes, I think so. Carol, are you?
Okay. Yes, I'm here. Okay. So our first sponsor here is O'Reilly. They offer 5 ebooks
for our raffle to all attendees they're offering 30 days full access to their online library. O'Reilly is an online learning platform, and to make sure that our global community can keep learning, we want to offer all attendees today a free 30-day membership to the O'Reilly online learning. So you can brush up on your skills that you'll need in this rapidly changing world and dive into something new. You get 30 days of free access to our entire O'Reilly catalog, which includes books, conference videos, and lots of curated playlists, GCP prep courses, and more. It's a value worth $49. And for access to O'Reilly's online learning platform, you can visit O'Reilly.com/getlearning. And if you attend until the end of the event, we'll provide you with a promo code. Another sponsor is ROI Training. They offer 4 Google Cloud certification training, ACE, PCE for our raffle. Okay, and they've been awarded Google Cloud Training Partner of the Year for 2017, 2018, and 2019. They're the largest team of authorized Google trainers globally. They've trained over 85,000 people on the Google Cloud platform, and ROI has trained 600 plus Google customer engineers on GCP. They have a significant experience working with other leading cloud providers. And ROI has been a lead author on several courses in the official Google Cloud curriculum. They have trained in over 30 countries.
Part was has been presenting by others. Am I right? You're supposed to present the prizes of the raffle. I'm sorry. I think, or I missed anything.
No.
1 second, because I got kicked off.
Okay.
And
Carol and I are presenting the sponsors. I was ready to present the other two when she's done.
Okay, because I missed the slides. 1 second. Okay, perfect. Give me just 1 second. My slides doesn't want to work.
Okay, so this was the O'Reilly slide.
Okay.
And now I was talking about ROI. Yes.
Can we do again the presentation of the sponsors? I'm sorry, because I got kicked off from my computer.
Oh, okay. Okay. So for O'Reilly, they offer 5 ebooks for our raffle, and to all attendees, they'll receive 30 days of full access to the online library. And so O'Reilly's online learning platform, to make sure that our global community can keep learning, we want to offer all attendees today a free 30-day membership to O'Reilly Online Learning, so you can brush up on the skills you'll need in this rapidly changing world and dive into something new. You will get 30 days of free access to the entire O'Reilly catalog, which includes books, conference videos, lots of curated playlists, GCP prep courses, and more. It's a value worth over $49. For access to O'Reilly's online learning platform, visit O'Reilly.com/getlearning. And that should be on the slide there. Okay, so if you attend until the end of the event, we'll provide you with the promo code for that. And then the next one is ROI Training. Okay, and they offer 4 Google Cloud certification trainings for the ACE and PCE for our raffle. They've been awarded Google Cloud Training Partner of the Year for 2017, 2018, and 2019. They're the largest team of authorized Google trainers globally. They've trained over 85,000 people on the Google Cloud platform. ROI has trained 600 plus Google customer engineers on GCP. They have a significant experience working with other leading cloud providers. And ROI has been a lead author on several courses in the official Google Cloud curriculum. ROI has trained in 30 plus countries across 6 continents. And their training offers a wide range of technology training, including courses in DevOps, cloud computing, Python, Java, Agile, and technology project management. You can visit their website, roitraining.com/course list. And there's a QR code you can scan also to see their full list of training offerings.
And these are the trainings that you can choose from if you win at our raffle.
Next, we have a bootcamp rewards, Practicum by Yandex. You can win your choice of web developer, data scientist, or a data analyst bootcamp and get a 40% discount. And everybody can get a 20% discount on any course. And like I said, this is a fully remote bootcamp for your tech job. The I am with a friend is the promo code. Are we going to post that later, Linda?
We can post it even now. Only the other one will be in the end. Okay, we'll take care. Thank you.
Okay, 1 second to type it up. I am with a friend. That's for Practicum by Yandex. And then this is for all the ladies, for all the women in tech. This is an award-winning program to how to negotiate by Develop Her. And you can apply to learn how to negotiate and get paid. So there is a link which I can post for everybody who wants to take advantage. Here we go. So yeah, this is to learn how to negotiate your salary. Thank you for all the sponsors who give us. So today is not only about learning, but also about winning.
Thank you.
All right, thank you so much. All right, so I'm going to soon hand it off to Frank, but I'm going to kind of tell you a little bit about Frank. He's actually an engineer at Google. He uses a lot of technology, for one, Firebase, which he will actually be discussing a little bit soon after this. So anyway, basically the plan is that he's going to develop 2 apps from scratch. And then he's going to be using with that StackBlitz and then also Firebase for the backend services to build that out for all of you. So without further ado, I'm going to hand it off to Frank and yeah, get ready to learn.
Thank you, Hannah, and thank you everyone else for the great intros. Thank you to the sponsors also. That was really cool. Hey, can I get some thumbs up if people can hear me? Yes, I see that. Thank you. That is great. Okay. I'm going to present, which unfortunately means that I won't be able to see your thumbs up anymore, just so you know. So I'll switch to presenting my full screen, and that means that I can see only what you see, but that's going to be okay. Let me see. Okay, and that also means that I will need help from the organizers to know when you can see my screen. So can one of the organizers unmute and say when you can see this huge slide with...
Yes, we can see a huge slide.
Perfect.
Perfect.
Perfect, that is great. Thank you, Linda. That was a guess because I can't see. Okay, so this is the first time that I do what I consider a conference for such a big online audience. And yesterday when we were doing the tech check, Linda reminded me that I talk really, really fast. So I have a note here that says slow down. And I have an agreement with the organizers that if I keep going too fast, they will unmute and they will tell me to slow down. So just so you know, if that happens, they're not being impolite, they're actually doing precisely what I asked from them. Because we were promised technical difficulties and will have technical difficulties. One of them might be that I speak way too fast. I'll try to do better though. Okay, so my name is Frank, or Puff. It's Puff, P-U, single F. As you can see, it's the first 3 letters of my last name. But I respond to both equally. I'm a Firebase engineer at Google, is what I always say. I've been working on Firebase since 2013 or something like that. And I've been at Google for pretty much as long as Firebase has been there. I'm a professional developer. I've done 20+ years of software development. Nowadays, I love helping developers build apps. And I love that precisely because you might know the quote that software is eating the world, right? It's from Mark Andreessen. I'm like, well, actually, apps are eating the world, right? If you open your phone, you have so many apps on there. And not a week goes by that I don't speak to multiple developers and hear about their cool app idea, right? And it's like, they are all great ideas, right? And it's the problem they always have is like building the app, right? And if you're not an experienced app developer, it's a lot of effort to build an app. So how do you deal with that, right? The most common approach that I see is that you try to convince somebody to help you. And it turns out that that's a great idea, but it's really hard to convince techies to help you with your app idea, because it's not that they're unwilling, but they also have very cool app ideas, right? So they want to work on their own app ideas and they would like your help instead of the other way around. So one of the best ways you can actually make your app dream come true is by building it yourself. And there's plenty of tools available online these days to help you with that. Tools that make developing apps pretty much simpler than it's ever been. It's still not easy, but it's never been easier than it is today, and it will be even easier tomorrow. So today we're going to be looking at 2 of these tools. One of them is StackBlitz, which is an online IDE. And that means that we don't have to install any local tools to be editing our source code and running it. The other tool is going to be Firebase. And that last one should not be a surprise because, as I said, I work on Firebase. Somehow the animations are not coming through. That's okay. So we will be building 2 applications today, and we're going to be building them from scratch. So I'm not going to be copy-pasting any snippets. Well, maybe I will copy 1 snippet from the documentation, but that's about it. We will be building them from 0 until we have a running app. That means a few things. For one, it means that they're going to be very ugly apps. They're going to be very minimal, right? There's no beautiful CSS, there's no skinning. So just accept it that these 2 apps are not going to be pretty, but they are going to be functional. And the other part is that I'm going to make mistakes in there. Usually when I'm at a conference, I ask people to, if they see me making a mistake, to yell it out at me. That won't be possible here, so we might have to rely on the organizers if this happens, and it typically will, because even if I've done this plenty of times, I will still make mistakes. If I get stuck, I'm pretty decent at getting unstuck, but otherwise, please help me there, because as said, otherwise we might be here for much longer than the agenda said. Okay, 2 apps. Let's see if you can guess what they are, just in your own mind, right? Figure out what these are. We're going to start with that first one, that image of the Golden Gate Bridge. And we are going to be building let me see if I still got this straight, a social, local, mobile, crowdsourced weather application. When I first described this to my product manager, he was like, I don't even know what all of those words mean. Well, it's a really simple application, because back in the day, I used to travel a lot. These days, that's a bit harder, but I used to travel the world. And when I do, I always love knowing what the weather is like back home. And back home for me is where I am today. It's San Francisco. If you've ever been to San Francisco, you know that we have 2 types of weather here. It's either sunny or it's foggy, right? We have no other weather. So what I would like is that my friends and wife back in San Francisco, right, can look outside, right, and see, right, it's like, the weather is foggy or the weather is sunny. They can click a button on the app, and then when I open that same app, I see what they clicked. So pretty much I want something like this. It's one of the most simple apps you can make, but it has some interesting traits already. So that's what we're going to be building now. Let's actually switch over to some code, which means I'm going to move this window a bit to the left. I'm going to open this one, make it a bit smaller. This should work. So I said I was going to use StackBlitz, right? Let's open that. So this is StackBlitz, and StackBlitz is a tool where you can online built applications, web applications. So both of the applications, we're building our web applications. You could build them in any technology, but we will be using JavaScript here. So you can see here that you can create new projects with lots of technologies. And then we have a list of all my projects that I have on StackBlitz. But we are going to be using plain old JavaScript here. It's very simple, very basic. We could build the same with any of these other technologies, but I like using the most basic technology here so that you can see that it works with anything, right? Firebase works great with Angular, but it also works great without it. So let's do this one. I'm going to make this a bit bigger so that we can see a bit more for now. Okay, this looks pretty good. Let's start with this. I might zoom in a bit to make the font size bigger, but for now, let's start here. So we have 3 panels here, and on the left, you see a list of files. And this was generated by StackBlitz for us, and we have an index.js file and an index.html file. Those are the main 2 files that we're going to be in. Let's open them both up. I'm actually going to close this panel here so that we have a bit more space. And this is already a fully functioning web application, because to the right of the code here, you see that we see the running web app, right? If we reload it, you can see that we can load it. In fact, you can go to this URL here at the top. You can see what I'm seeing now. But StackBlitz is pretty amazing, because if I actually type an extra character here, did you see that it changed on the right? Type a few more characters, and it auto reloads on the right when I'm typing. This is really powerful, because it means that I can essentially almost like prototype my way to a working app. And when you're building apps in live coding, that's really handy, it turns out. But also I do a lot of like text projects on StackBlitz simply because it's faster for me. An extra advantage is that if you open this URL and I make a change here, it will actually auto reload for you. So if you've ever done any Flutter development, you know that as hot reload. And StackBlitz does hot reload for web apps, which is one of the big advantages I see in this. Okay, now let's see. I'm going to go back to the previous slide here, because we need something that looks like this. So I'm first going to get rid of this JavaScript, because we're not going to use it. I'm going to go over to the HTML. I'm also going to get rid of this single div that they have in here. Now we only need to type the body of our HTML. So let's see. What we see here is a label. Right, and let's say that we're initially loading the weather, right? We don't know what the weather is like. Okay, so that's half of our app done pretty much here. Then we're going to add a button. And do you see that it auto-completes as I'm typing, that it actually, let's do that again. Gives me the HTML elements. And if you've used Visual Studio Code, this might look really familiar to you. And that's because actually StackBlitz runs Visual Studio Code right in the browser. And that's amazing, because it means, for one, that I know a lot of the shortcut keys, but also that it's really fast for me to type anything. So I need 2 buttons, right? One of them says sunny. The other one says, and remember, I said I wouldn't copy paste anything, but I'll definitely use autocomplete because it's a lot better for typos. Okay, this still looks a bit weird, so I'm going to add a line break here. And just for some spacing, let's add another line break. Just looks slightly better here. Okay. This is pretty much all the HTML we need. As I said, it's a very simple application. Now let's go to the JavaScript. So I'm first going to make sure that this application works locally without like any other users. So let's see. If I click one of the buttons, I want to update the label with the value that you clicked, right? So if I click foggy, we want loading weather to become foggy and sunny. So let's do that first. So now we're going to actually manipulate a bit. We're going to do query selector all, and we're going to select all the buttons. Actually, put that in a variable like this. Now we get these 2 buttons, and we're going to then listen for when somebody clicks on the button. So we loop over the buttons, and we get one of the buttons. And then for the button, we add an event listener for when somebody clicks on it. And if that happens, we get an event. You can see that I get lots of error messages on the right as I'm typing. I always find that a bit like distracting. So I'm going to go into the settings, and I'm going to tell it to only reload on save. I'm also actually going to tell it to do a full page reload in that case. Okay. You won't see a big difference, but it's slightly slower in refreshing. It just makes that I have less distraction in the right, my right corner of my eye. That's good because I'm very easily distracted. Okay, so we have the button and we clicked on it. So what we need to do is we need to get the label. That's another query selector, and that's the only label we have. So like this, and then we say that the text content of the label becomes the, let's see, the buttons. I think text content also might be value. Let's give it a try. Let's see if this makes sense, right? So we take all the buttons, and for each button, we attach a listener for when you click on that button, right? And so when that happens, we get an event, it's called, where we know what button was clicked, and we take its text content. We then set that text content to our label. Sorry. And so now we can do this. But if you've opened this same URL, you won't be seeing what I clicked here. You'll still be seeing loading weather or whatever button you clicked. So this is great if you want to sort of do your own weather check, but it doesn't really help you for knowing this when you travel. I'm actually going to do one more thing, because since I keep telling you that you can go to this URL, I'm going to rename my project to something that is more easy for you to type in your browser if you want. So I'm renaming the project here, then I'm saving that. Now, StackBlitz is essentially like changing all the things behind the scenes. And this makes it slightly easier for you. If you now go to weathersf.stackblitz.io, you'll be seeing the same thing that I'm seeing. Okay, so we have local changes working, but we still need to figure out how to then save that with other users. So let's go back to the slides for a moment and see how we can do that. Because we do that by using Firebase. Let's see, what is Firebase? And welcome, this is my job. This is Firebase. This is 18 to 20 products. I'm honestly not sure how many we have today, but it's a platform with products that make it easier to build great applications. And we've classified these products in like categories, right? And they do things like databases, crash reporting, analytics, all kinds of stuff. But for today, we're not going to cover all of these. That would not be a fun talk for anyone but my boss. So we're going to ignore the 2/3 on the right, just because we don't need them. We are going to be focusing on that column here that's called building better apps. And if we look at what that means, it's actually, these are tools that help you build apps very quickly. By using Firebase in your application, you can focus on building the application logic, the thing that makes your application unique. And Firebase takes care of all the backend services, all the security and scalability of databases, authentication, hosting, file storage. All these things are handled by Firebase's backend services. So that's these 8 products on the left. We're not going to use all of them. In fact, we're only going to use these 2 today. Right? So we're going to use 2 databases that are part of Firebase. We're going to use Cloud Firestore, but for this first application, we're going to use the Firebase real-time database, which is the original Firebase product. This is what we started with 8 years ago. Yeah, this is its own logo. And if you've ever built an app that is connected to the web or to remote devices, and you have a database, then you're probably used to this architecture, right? You first define your data model in your database, and then you create a server where you talk to the database and then make the data from the database available to the clients, to the devices that connect to your server. And with Firebase, that can be done, but we actually allow the application to talk directly to the database. So those are these 2 arrows on the side here. Right? The traditional path is through the middle, right? Every device talks to your server, where you do things like making sure the user is signed in, that they're authorized to do the thing, right? And then your server talks to the database. Firebase allows your devices to directly talk to the database. And this leads to all kinds of interesting things. For one, it makes it very easy to build a multi-user application. And that is really good, but it also leads to some security concerns, which we'll address also in a moment. Okay, when you have a database, you always have to think of a data model. And if you've done like anything with a database before, you're probably mostly used to a relational database model, where you have a table and you have rows in there and you do foreign keys and like all kinds of things. Firebase does not have a relational database. We have NoSQL databases. And these are databases that work differently. The Firebase real-time database is actually, it stores JSON. It's JavaScript, and the easiest way to think of it, it stores a tree of values. So you have like a hierarchy, like you would have as a folder structure in your local drive. And we store values in there, like they're the values that you would write in a file in your file system. So here, for example, we have a database with grocery items. So that's a key, as we call it. And under grocery items, we have 3 items with keys, item 1, item 2, and item 3. And these then have the values milk, eggs, and kale. You can see that this was made by somebody from San Francisco because boy, do we love kale here. Now, this is data that we can load into our application, but of course we would never show like the grocery items and those other keys, right? All we would show in our application is that we need to get milk, eggs, and kale, right? So we need a way to load that data from the database that is running in the cloud and show it in our application. And this is an example of that code. We'll do it in a moment also. But we set up a reference to a location in the cloud, and then we listen to those values. What makes Firebase, well, made Firebase unique, there's multiple databases that do that now, that it's a cloud-hosted database where if you make a change to the data, that data is synchronized to all other connected clients within milliseconds. So in this animation, you see a yellow line going up from one device, and then you see blue lines going to all the other devices. That's how Firebase works, right? Think of the yellow line as somebody clicking on the sunny or foggy button in our app, and then the blue line means that everyone sees that value almost instantly. We'll see a lot of that in a moment. One more thing to do before we go back to the code. This is our data model for today. So all we need to store is one value, right? We need to store whether you clicked sunny or foggy. So that's what we're going to be doing today. And our data model for that is really simple, and that's intentional because we want to make it sure that we get started with something easy. Let's switch over to the right-hand side and actually start working on this. Cool. So we're gonna open up a this is the Firebase homepage, firebase.google.com. This is where all the documentation lives. But yeah, you sort of have me. You don't need the documentation right now. But if you are learning to work with Firebase, you'll probably click on a lot of these other links. I'm going to click in the top right here and go to the Firebase console. The Firebase console is where all of my Firebase projects are hosted. So Firebase works on the basis of projects, and each project has like the databases for that project. It has the list of users for that project. And you can see that I have quite some projects. It actually shows 6 here, but I have like a longer list down here, which makes sense because I've been using Firebase for a while. And we're going to be using the project Weather SF here. So I click on that panel, and this loads my Firebase project. Now, it's a bit hard to see. Let me see if I can make this slightly bigger. I can, but somehow it refuses to show the names of these features. I have no idea why that is. Okay, but here on the left, we have all the Firebase products. Here in the top, we have the Firebase development products. And I'm going to click specifically on this one. So I can manage all my Firebase products for the Weather SF project here. I'm going to be using the real-time database. We click here, and now we get to the meat of things. I'm going to zoom in a bit. It's probably the best I can do. This is our database that we have. This is the real-time database. And it lives on this location. This is the URL where we can actually access the database. I'll show you that in a moment. But right now, the database is sadly empty, which I think we should fix. Remember, we had a data model defined. Let's quickly go back here. Right? We had the weather node where we have the current weather showing. So let's actually first, in our console, create that node. I'm going to create a node here called weather. And I'm going to type the current weather. Now, I said we only have 2 types of weather, but if you've been following the news, we actually have a new type of weather here in California, because it's really smoky outside right now. I type the key, the name, weather, and the value, smoky. So this is what it shows like. And this is the data model that we promised we'd be using today. Okay. Now, this value is accessible to anyone in the world. If I copy this URL here, I type .json at the end. Oh, I see I get a permission denied. That's really interesting. That actually makes sense. That's the first the first demo failure. Let's go into weather SF here. Sorry, into weather here. Now let's do this. We're going to open this URL and type JSON at the end. You see that I get smoky as the value here. And if I change it to warm and smoky, for example, we reload here, you can see that we see the new value. So every value that I have in my database has its own unique URL. If I would store stock information in here, like the tickers or something, they would exist here, right? You would have the Google stock on like the stock exchange, right? And I could look up that value too. Right now, that value doesn't exist and I don't have access to it, but we could model whatever we want here. And every value has its own unique address. We're actually already using the first API of Firebase here, because this is using the REST API. And I'm doing if you've done REST before, I'm doing a GET request to this URL here, and that gives me the JSON representation of the value at this location. And I could also do a put and a post, and then I could write a value to this location. That's not what we're going to be using though. Like, it's way more fun if we use the SDKs for Firebase. So this is pretty much what we needed in the database. I'm actually going to change it back to smoky because it is warm, but and we're going to go over back to our StackBlitz. I'm first going to move this auto. I'm going to move it to the left here. The reason is that I want us to be able to see it in a moment. Like, I want to be able to see these side by side. Okay, because now we're going to wire up our tiny little HTML and JavaScript here to this database. And we're going to be reading and writing from this database. And to do that, we first need to add Firebase as a dependency. So I'm going to do that by typing Firebase as dependencies here. Now, StackBlitz uses a NPM package manager, which is, if you've never used it, you type the name of one of hundreds of thousands of packages here, and it then adds a dependency in this package.json. You can see that that went really quickly. Part of that is because I think we're going to have to reload it in a moment. There were some changes to StackBlitz that I'm working with the team to figure out why they are happening, but we'll get to that in a bit. Okay, so this added Firebase and makes it available to my code. So the next step is that we're going to import this into this JavaScript file. So we're going to import Firebase from Firebase. That makes the Firebase JavaScript SDK available to my code. Now, that is great, right? Because now this code can talk to Firebase. But we need to tell it where our data lives. So we need to tell it that our project is called weathersf.firebase.io.com. I'm going to do that by typing this literally here. We'll see another way in a moment. It's a code with a configuration key called database URL. I'm going to actually copy URL. Here is a string. One was not needed. There we are. Okay. We get an extra message from StackBlitz. This one, as I said, is new since a few weeks. We have to install the package again, but it does work after that. Okay. You can see that we just had to click. Okay. We're ready to get started. Now, first off, right, we need to get a reference to this weather node in our database. So typically, traditionally, Firebase calls these refs, references. And we're going to say Firebase.database. This gets me the API for the Firebase real-time database. Then I create a ref to weather. That weather here is the same as this weather. So you can see that we have weather SF here in the database URL. And then we have the weather node name in the ref here. Okay. Nothing happens on the right yet different, because all we've done is set up a reference, a pointer to the correct location in the database. So next up, we need to start reading and writing. Let's start with reading, because that's the most fun for me. Let's see. I'm going to type that at the bottom here. Let's actually start with writing, since we have most of the code already. Let's change our mind here. So instead of setting the value on the label, I want to write the value to the database so that we change smoky to whatever we clicked here. So I'm going to quickly comment this line out, because this is what we're going to change. We're no longer going to write it to the local HTML. We're going to write it to the database. Do that by doing ref.set we're going to take this, going to move it and put it in here. Okay, nothing changed here. But now when I click the button, did you see it changing on the left? You see it turning yellow. I click foggy. I click sunny. So it changes almost immediately, right? You can see that it changes very quickly. Okay, this is all that it takes to write to the Firebase database. That's really, really cool. There's one problem. We now no longer show what button I clicked at the top here. So let's fix that. That we're going to do by reading the value from the database. And Firebase has a unusual way of doing that. The reason it's unusual is because remember that animation that I showed, where if one person clicks and writes the value, that everyone else sees that almost instantly? Well, that's actually the reason we have unusual code. By the way, if you see the value changing on the left now, that's somebody else doing this, which is totally fine, by the way. Feel free to change that. There's no worries there. But just so you know, there's no magic happening. Somebody else opened this page, the weathersf.stackblitz.io, and is clicking the buttons. That's totally fine. OK, we're going to do ref.on. We're going to do on value. And what this sets is that when I run this code, give me the value from that location. So in our case, right now, that would be foggy, right? And that means that we get a snapshot of that data. That snapshot contains the value that currently exists in that reference. So what we are going to do is we're going to take the rest of the code that I commented out here, which also means that this line is no longer needed. But here, I'm going to set this to snapshot.val. Make this tiny wider so that everything fits. Now, I haven't hit save yet because I want you to pay attention to the screen on the right when I hit save. So I'm going to click the button and keep looking on the right what happens here. I hit save, StackBlitz reloads, and now it says sunny, the same value as we have on the left. If I click foggy, you can see that it shows foggy. Well, it actually keeps changing now because people are clicking the button, but it's totally fine. But you can see that it changes in the database and on my screen. It's 21 lines of code, and we are doing a multi-user application. I want you to pay attention for a moment. I'm going to reload the panel here on the right and want you to look at what's happening on this tiny bit of screen here. Do you see that it briefly shows loading weather? So loading weather is what we have hard-coded into our HTML. You can see that it briefly shows that value before it loads the value from the database. But then once it does, you can see that when other people are changing the value in the database, when I'm not clicking the button, my on value is still listening. So I get a snapshot of the new value that you have there, and I set it to this label. So if I go into the database and change this value to something completely else, like Smoky again, for example, because I know that's a button you don't have, you would see that wow, everyone is clicking the button. This is going to be rough for a moment. Ways to trick that. I might have to lock you out of the database in that case. But you can see that it's not just my changes that are showing. It's actively listening to everything that's happening. Okay. This is the power of the Firebase database. Now, I love that people are trying things. I also know for a fact that some of you are trying to hack my database, right? Because how can we make this safe? How can it be, right, that how can we prevent somebody from writing something else on our database? And I'll show you actually how we can do that by being a bad user. I'm going to try to hack my own database. Because I told you right at the start that we also have Smoky weather. Let's say I add a third button for Smoky. Now, our code can still be the same because we were listening to all buttons and we're setting the value. So if I now click Smoky, let's carefully look at what happens on the right. Did you see this? It very briefly flashes Smoky, and then it goes back to foggy right now, because that's the value we have. That's interesting, right? Why is that happening? Because if I go into this now, I really hope that I, for a moment, can actually change the value. Right? If I type Smoky here, I leave shortcuts with a B in there. You can see that it does update. And I click the foggy button, it writes to the database. When I click the Smoky button, it doesn't write to the database. You can see that on the left, it doesn't go yellow, but my screen flashes. And why is that? That's because of Firebase's security rules. Because since we allow this application code to directly talk to the database, we have sort of one rule, which is you can't trust the code, right? Because you just saw me trying to hack the code. And if I can write Smokey in there, something that I clearly didn't want initially, then anyone can write anything in there. And that's not what we want. So we have a set of database rules here. They might be a bit hard to read, but I'm going to go through them. These are security rules that are applied on the database server to any write operation that happens from the client. And it's a bit of like syntax, right? It's a domain-specific language, but it says these are the security rules, and these are the rules that apply to our weather node. Remember, that's what we're writing to. And it's very simple. It says that anyone can read and write this, but, oh, sorry, I accidentally made a change there. But we're going to validate the value that you can write. And you can write the value, and it says the new data that you're writing must be a string, which is a good starting point. If we do a bit more, if we scroll to the right here, you can see that the new data, its value, that's value just like we were using over here in the code, must match. And if you've done JavaScript and regular expressions, you recognize matches is a regular expression. It must match this regular expression that we have here. So it must be exactly sunny or foggy. These rules are enforced for any client-side application, right? So my code here has these, but if you take my database URL and start writing your own code with that, it's totally fine. But all you can do is what is allowed by these security rules. So you can write sunny or foggy. Now I can expand this, right? And I can say that we can also write smoky here. And it might take a moment before this, like, takes the database. So I'm not going to do this now because it might take like up to a minute, but I can allow more values. But this is me as the developer allowing that, right? I'm in the console, which is a secured environment. Right? Any malicious user won't have access to your console. They can just do what we do in the window on the right here. Okay, so I'm going to go back to this. What I'm going to do briefly is I'm going to not allow any of you to write anymore. So I am actually going to change the database. I'm going to publish these changes. Now, if all is well, then if I click sunny, you can see that even that like gives a brief flash and changes back. We're going to show the data again for a moment. So now even sunny doesn't work anymore. But you see it briefly flashing here. The reason for that is that Firebase it optimistically assumes that any write operation succeeds. So when I click the button here and I do ref.set with whatever value we set, it sort of assumes in my own web app here that it works. So it immediately calls ref.enValue with a new snapshot. It says, hey, Puff clicked sunny. And then it sends it off to the server, right? So we show it in the label, and in the background, Firebase sends it off to the server. And the server says, wait a moment, you're not allowed to set any values anymore. So the server says, like, yeah, I'm not going to write this, and you should fix that. So the client gets a rejection of the write, and it puts the previous value back that we had. And that's why you see a brief flash. It's essentially the difference between the client thinking that the write will succeed and the server telling it that it didn't. Now, normally this wouldn't happen, right? Because normally you would make sure that the buttons here match with your security rules, right? If nobody can write, we wouldn't have any buttons that allow them to write. But typically, right, when I see a question that says, hey, my data briefly shows the new value and then it goes back to the old value, it's like, your security rules are intercepting that. Okay, I'm going to go back to this one. No, sorry, I'm actually going to not do that. I'm going to go here. Because, yeah, now what can we still do, right, if nobody can write to the database? Well, I can still say that it's smoky out here. This write is allowed, right? You see that it updates here straight away. For example, if I am now thinking that smoky does have an E in there, I'm not sure. You can see that it is allowed. Clearly, this does not match my regular expression. That's because I'm in a trusted environment, as it's known. In the Firebase console, I'm one of the developers on this project, right? I'm a collaborator on this project. So it's trusted that I know what I'm doing and that I type here something that I want to display, even if it doesn't match the security rules. And I can do that in the console but we also have administrative SDKs, where you can download a security certificate from your Firebase console, and you can use that to run your own code in a trusted environment. So you wouldn't run it in StackBlitz, because anyone can take what you have there. But you could run it, for example, on your own server, or your own development machine, or in Cloud Functions. And you can then access the database and do things that regular users are not allowed to do. Okay, I'm going to go back and allow you all to write the data. Rules are published, and I think with that we are pretty much done with our app. I'm actually going to remove that smoky button for now. And now everything works again. So if you go to weathersf.stackblitz.io, you can tell me what the weather is like. Given the name, it would be nice if it's the weather in San Francisco, but you can look it up online also. Okay, that's one of our apps, I think. Let me quickly go back to slides and see where we are. Right, a few more things about Firebase. Our SDKs are resilient to loss of network connectivity. That means that if I would go into a tunnel and I click the button to set that it's sunny, it won't be able to send that data to the server, right? Because it won't have network connectivity. But the app won't stop working. You will actually remember that you clicked that button, and then once we come out of the tunnel, we have a network connection again. It will send that value to the server. And this is really good because network connectivity is spotty, you know that. And the Firebase client hides this transparently from you. Because remember that when I click the button, the on is immediately triggered locally. So I would, if I click foggy, immediately see foggy here, but others will only see it once I have network connectivity again. If you use one of our native mobile clients for iOS or Android, it actually has this caching enabled. So that means that the values that you have will even survive if you do a restart of the application. Okay, remember that very ugly button that we had here? I think we have built the same here. So let's see, one app down in, okay, a bit longer than expected, but I think we still made pretty good headway. Now, I can imagine that you might not have guessed what type of app we were going to be building for that first image. But for the second one, I hope everyone knows that we're going to be building yet another chat app. Because I work at Google, and at Google, it seems like we can never have enough chat apps, right? We love building chat applications. So we're going to be building another one today. But this is going to be the world's simplest chat app. I typically call this nano chat, but you can call it whatever you want. But you can see that it looks like this. And it's as simple as we can make it. It's a screenshot that I dug up this morning. So but we are going to be building an app like this. Let's code. Okay. I'm going to leave this StackBlitz up for a moment. I will delete it in a bit. I'm going to leave it now because you can actually go to stackblitz.com/edit/weathersf and you can copy the code if you want. You can't make changes to it, but you can copy it. You can fork from this project and create your own so that you also have it. Now, you're free to use my database for writing sunny or foggy, but if you want to do more, then of course you want to create your own project. A thing to keep in mind there is that Firebase is free to get started with. So you can just go to firebase.google.com. If you haven't signed up yet, sign up today. You can get your own database like this. And this project is on our free plan. I will never pay a dime for this. In fact, most of my projects are on the free plan. So nothing here, neither StackBlitz nor Firebase, requires you to pay for what I'm showing you today. Another app. Let's see. Okay, I'm going to create another JavaScript project. Remember, this time we were going to build a chat app. By now, we're pretty used to how StackBlitz look. I'm going to change these settings because, as I said, while hot reload is awesome, it makes me slightly nervous. Not sure why this button didn't work. Okay, there we go. And I'm going to do it only on a save, like this. That's all. Then I'm going to open the index.js and the HTML file. And then I can hide this panel so that we have a bit more space. Zoom in a bit. This actually looks pretty okay. Okay, going back to the JavaScript. So remember, right, any change we make here shows up immediately on the right when we reload. We're not going to use this JavaScript. Okay, so it's empty now. Now we're going to build a chat app. And the simplest chat app I can think of is that we have an ordered list of messages. This one is empty now, but we're going to say that we are loading the messages, right? Because we're going to be loading them from a database. Quickly, actually going to go back to the left here so you can see what we're trying to build. Oh, like that. Okay, so you can see that we have a list of messages, You can see that's an ordered list because there's numbers showing. We're not using the numbers, but I always find it easy because I can point to these numbers. Okay. Now we need a form. And in the form, we're going to have two things. We're going to have an input of type text. It's the default. We're going to have an input of type submit. And post form. This is pretty much what we see here in the screenshot also. So we're good to go. We can make this bigger again. That gives us a bit more room to play with. So this is our chat. But yeah, just like before, we need to store this data somewhere, right? I can make something where I show the chat messages locally, but yeah, that's not going to help us a lot. So I'm actually first going to show you what we're using from Firebase here. So remember, we had two databases that we were going to use, and we used the real-time database before. For the chat application, we're going to use Cloud Firestore. And Cloud Firestore, just like before, is a NoSQL cloud-hosted database. So you might wonder, why does Firebase have two databases? It's like, well, because they're different. They have different goals. But like I said, just like before, Firestore is a cloud-hosted NoSQL database. That means that your data is stored in the cloud. You can share it with other users. In fact, the effortless sync that we saw from the real-time database is also in Cloud Firestore. So that's not a reason to pick one over the other. It works great. What is different, though, is how Firestore handles offline mode. So Firestore allows much more querying when you're not connected. That's one of the reasons you might want to use Firestore. But mostly, if you use Firestore, it's because it's effortless scalability. The real-time database scales very far. You can have hundreds of thousands of users connected to a single database, and you can create multiple database instances. We have plenty of customers that have millions and millions of users connected to a database. But Firestore makes it effortless, and I want to show you a bit about how it does that. So Firestore actually scales by the fact that it has the data in multiple data centers. So no matter what you do, the data is replicated across multiple data centers. And that means that it will survive like a fire in the data center, and it will even actually survive an earthquake. And that is really good because you have nothing to do about it. You'll see that nothing that we are going to be doing, we have to say, it's like, oh, can you make sure that the data is disaster proof? It's like, no, it's just by default doing that. Firestore uses a slightly different model to store the data. So remember, we had a tree of data before, a tree of values. In Firestore, you create what's called a document. And a document is a set of related data. So you take all the properties of something that looks like a bird in this scenario, and you store them in a single document. And that means that Firestore knows that these values belong together. And you then store these documents into collections. So we have a collection, let's say, called birds, and in there, each document represents a single bird. Right, so we have all the properties of bird in a document. And we can query the collection of birds, right, and get the values from that. You can even nest collections under documents. So let's say that we are building, I don't know, maybe a chat app, right, with multiple chat rooms. That's not what we'll be doing today, but let's say that you are building that. Then you could say we have a collection of chat rooms, and in there, each document represents a chat room. But yeah, in a single document, you can't store all the messages for a chat room. So what you can do is create a sub-collection under the chat room document where you store the messages for that chat room. You can build a nested hierarchy like that, however deep you want, or there's like 32 levels. Right? And that way you can structure your data and you have extra information about that data. But this is where Firestore gets its magic from, because since you tell us what a document is and you store them in collections, Firestore can do a very intelligent indexing of that data. This is, for example, a query we can do. Let's say that we have a collection of restaurants where each document is a restaurant. We want to get the top 10 rated restaurants in Chicago. Right? We can do that by firing this query in JavaScript. And now let's say that for testing, we stored like maybe 100 or 1,000 restaurants in there. This gets us 10 of those restaurants. And for sake of argument, let's say that this takes a second and a half, right? We don't know, but let's assume that it does. Firestore has a guarantee that if it takes a second and a half when you have 1,000 restaurants, that you get 10 out of there, that even if you have 1 million restaurants or 1 billion restaurants, getting those 10 restaurants out of there will still take a second and a half. If you've ever worked with relational databases, you've never seen this type of guarantee, because you're used to maybe an n log n performance, right? Where if you're lucky, it's logarithmic. And honestly, if you've built your own database, then your initial version is going to be like order n or order n squared, right? I've done those. Firestore gives you a flat performance. Taking 10 items out of however many will take the same, like I said, second and a half, whatever the performance is you have. That means once you're done with like building your app, you know what the performance is going to be, even if you get like millions of users. This is the extra power that Firestore delivers you. Its synchronization and write throughput are slightly lower than you might get with the real-time database, but in return, you get a horizontal scalability on your reads. That is huge. So let's start using Firestore in our app. I should still have, yes, this was what I was looking for. Okay, this is my Firebase console. I'm quickly going to make it a bit bigger because we're going to switch to a different project. I have a drop down here of all my projects. I'm going to be using this project called FireConf 2018. So it's like you're all joining me in Prague, it turns out. Okay. I'm going to actually switch to Cloud Firestore here. So here you see all our products on the left. Now they have labels. That's really good. We're using the Cloud Firestore database. So this is my database. I'm going to be using a node called chat. And I'm going to zoom out a bit just for the moment so that you can see a tiny bit more. You might not be able to read it, but this is what we're going to use. So in chat, we have a lot of documents here already. And these documents have two fields. All of them have two fields. First one is called message. The second one is a timestamp of when that message was sent. And this is a standard like millisecond since the epoch timestamp. Okay. And the idea of this timestamp is that we can order on descending timestamp that we get the latest messages. Because right in a chat app, unlike our weather application, right, weather application had one value, but here we're going to have like dozens or hundreds of messages, and I might not want to show them all. I might just want to show the latest 10. So that's what we see here. So this is the latest message that we've sent, and this is the one before it. You can see that I'm not very creative with what I'm typing. Okay, so this is what we're going to be using. We're going to be using this database in our app. So we're going to go back to our code because we need to start wiring this up. I'm going to move this slightly to the left in the hopes that we can see enough of everything. It's the best we can make of it. I'm going to try one better, like this and this. Okay. So just like before, we're going to add a Firebase dependency. If you type it correctly. So StackBlitz now adds that dependency for us automatically. It already reloaded. And then we are going to go into our JavaScript and we're going to import Firebase, again, just like before. See, it doesn't matter which database I access, this is all going to be the same. What is going to be different, though, is how we initialize the project. Because I need to access this database. And right, with the real-time database, we saw a URL at the top, but here we don't. So I'm actually going to go to my project configuration for a moment. I'm going to open it in a new tab here. And we're going to define the app that we have here on this project. Now, I've already done this. So you can have multiple apps talking to the same project. You can see that in this case, I have a Flutter app on iOS and a web app. Both of these are talking to the same backend services. So if they're both looking at the chat collection in Firestore, they would actually both be seeing the same set of chat messages. Because Firebase is cross-platform. You can just add more of these apps to it. If I compile the Flutter app for Android also, then I would add an entry for the Android version also, right? And if I would even compile the Flutter app for a web app, then I would like maybe use this one or add another web app to this. So I'm going to be using the settings of the web app here because I need a little snippet that we have here at the bottom. Because I'm going to copy this configuration data. I'm going to paste it into my app. Remember, I said I wouldn't copy paste, but then I said one thing. This is the one thing. Your project will have different values. Okay, so let's do it like this. And I'm going to undent. Oh. Still a bit big. I'm going to make the font slightly smaller just so that we can read it a bit more here. Okay, now this is a lot more data. Remember, here's database URL. That's the value that we were using before. That was the only value we used earlier. Of course, it's a different URL because my project has a different name now. But you can see that we have many more values. One of the things you might notice is that I'm not nervous. I'm not trying to hide any of these values, even though some of them have like values that are like, wait, aren't those secrets? It's like, no, they're actually not. This is configuration data. Remember that we had security rules before? With this configuration data, you can find my project on the Google servers, but you can only do things that I've allowed in my security rules. Right? So this database, well, it doesn't even exist yet. So you can't write to it, you can't read from it, because I have secured that. I don't need all of these values. To be honest, I probably only need the project ID right now, but I'm gonna keep them in here just so that you can see that they're not a secret, right? These are used for various parts of Firebase. For example, the message sender is if you use push notifications, the app ID is if you use analytics, right? These are just different configuration values. What is the same as before is that we call Firebase initialize app with the configuration data. With that, we are ready to start using Firestore in our code. I so expect somebody to now try and hack my database. I really hope I secured it well, but if not, we have another of those technical problems. So that would be interesting also. Okay, so just like before, we're going to set up a reference to our chat collection in the database. I'm actually going to go back here. So we're going to set up a reference to this collection of chat documents. So, and to do that, we do Firebase just like before, but now we type Firestore, which gets us the Firestore database. And then we say collection, that's the API, chat. It sets up a reference to this collection. Doesn't do anything else yet. Now we have two things that we can do. I'm actually first going to write the value again, just like we did before. So we have a form. So we're going to do document.querySelector for that form. And we're going to add an event listener for when the form is submitted. It's a bit long, this one, by the way, but it will get better. Okay. So when the form gets submitted, I get called with an event about information about that form. Now, one of the things you notice is that I hit submit, nothing happens yet, except you see that the page reloads. I don't like that, so I'm going to prevent that from happening. We do that by telling the event that I want to prevent its default behavior, because normally forms are submitted by reloading the page. That's how original HTML works. But since we've had Ajax for probably 15 to 20 years now, we don't need this anymore. I'm going to return false. That's the other thing I'm going to do. Now when I hit submit, nothing happens. That's good. So what do we need to do when we hit submit? We need to take the value that you entered into the text box, and we need to send that to the database. We do that by calling on chat. Well, let's actually first get the message. Let's do that first. Let's message equals document.querySelector. I'm going to take the first input, and it's called value. I'm not sure yet. We'll see. Now we get the value from that. Okay. We're going to send that to Firebase. So we have the chat collection. We're going to call add on that. We pass in a JSON object, just the data that we want. So the first thing is message. That's the field name, same that we have here on the left. See? And we're going to pass in the value message. Then we do a timestamp. And for now, I'm just going to do date.now. We could also use a server-side value, but I think this is just slightly easier. Okay, now let's send a message. Let's send a very simple hello message. And I hit submit on the right here. You see nothing happens on the right, but notice that my selected document is now not the top one anymore because we just added this hello, and see how it's spelled as I did here? Oh, I forgot one thing. What I always like doing is making my input empty after I do this. So after we send it to the database, I'm actually going to say is empty. It's a bit smaller because honestly, we shouldn't be scrolling too much. Then we do hello developers. You see that briefly, this new document showed in green. So it was sent to the database already. Now, it's slightly more code than for our weather application. It's still not a lot. So that's half a chat application, right? You can now all talk to me because I can see all your chat messages here. Let's make sure that we can also all talk to each other by reading the data from the database. To do that, we're going to listen to the chat application. But before we did that with on, here we do it with on snapshots. Now this will get me all chat messages. It's a bit much. I actually don't want all chat messages. For one, I want them ordered by their date, remember? By their timestamp. So I'm going to do order by timestamp. descending, so that the newest ones come on top. This will give me all the chat messages in the order that we see them here. But I don't want all of them. I just want 10. So I'm going to do limit 10. This will give me the 10 most recent chat messages. Just like before, we will get a callback when that happens with what's known here as a query snapshot of those 10 chat messages. And just like before, it will give me the initial 10 chat messages right away when I run this code. It will keep listening for updates there and give me new 10 chat messages. What do we do with those chat messages? Well, we add them to the list of messages, right? So we're going to do let list. And I'll look up our ordered list like this, and we're going to add it to that. That means that we're going to create a list element, like a list item. That's called, oh, we forgot something here. We need the list, but then we're going to loop over the messages. Loops through all the messages in descending order of timestamp, like we asked them in the order by. We get the document of that. Slightly confusing, we have two documents. One of them is the document that represents the HTML window. The other one is the document that we got from the database. So you see me using them, and I'll try to point it out which one we're using. Okay, so we're going to create a list item. And we use the HTML document for that, and we do create element li, because that's the element that we need in here. Then we're going to set the text content of this li to be the document's data.message. Oh, lots of typos. So this message is, again, the field that we had here and the field that we set here in our code. The timestamp we're not displaying, which is the timestamp we're already using to determine the order. So this is all that we need. Now, I saved and it's not showing yet, and the reason for that is that I didn't add it to the list yet. So we do list.append li. Now, if I save this, look on the right to see what's happening. You see that it immediately loaded 10 messages. Do you also see that it still shows loading messages? Right. Every time we get like data from the server, we need to actually clear the list, right? We need to make sure that we don't see the previous messages. We're going to do that by a simple inner HTML, which is saved, by the way, because it's an empty string. I hard-coded it. So now we see the latest messages. That means that if we say hello GDG, for example, see it? It showed up on the right. I'm not sure if you paid close attention, you might have seen that it showed up on the right before it showed up in the database, because here too, the local query snapshot is fired before the remote query snapshot. Right, and then we do hello, maybe if women tech makers are here. That's really a chat app, right? We got pretty far. Okay, I'm going to quickly change a tiny thing because I didn't give you full access to this yet. I'm going to zoom out a bit so that I can see more. Let's give this a name. Let's see if the name NanoChat is available. Okay, so if you now go to, I'm going to make the code a bit smaller, nanochat.stackblitz.io, you can see the same list that I see. You can type chat messages. The thing is, not every message you type will make it through. Because remember, I've secured this database to make sure that we can only say safe things, like somebody just said hello. But if you want to say something, hello, Smoky San Francisco, right? Now, look on the right when I hit submit, what happens? Did you see? It briefly showed up and it disappeared again. Do you know what that means? We've seen this before, right? This means that locally it initially works, and then the server rejects it based on my security rules. So apparently I've set up security rules on this database to prevent from people typing just about anything, which seems like a good idea to me when I'm doing a live demo. Apparently, Firebase is allowed, but let's see. So these are my security rules for the Firestore database. They look very different from the real-time database. It's a different language, but I'll talk you through it again. So these two lines are actually the same for everything. But here on line 3, you see that we're matching chats. And this is our collection. Remember, that's the one that we're using in our code. We're matching every document in chat. And we say anyone's allowed to read it, right? Which is good for a chat app like this. Anyone's allowed to read it. But you're only allowed to write it if the data that you have, if the message in there matches. And here's another regular expression. Now, this one is a bit more complex. And if you've done regular expressions, then you might recognize that. If you've never done them, I apologize. They are like trying to read tea leaves. It's quite tricky at times. This one matches a bunch of words. And you can type these words and it will accept them. If you type any other word, it will not accept it. And I can see that people are doing things already. Ooh, that's an interesting one. I didn't realize that the space was not required. See message 3 now. Hello, GGG, everyone. I still think it's going to be pretty hard to make a bad message with just these words. But I probably should actually require white space between the words to make that even harder. So this is how I've secured this app. Now, this is not how you would secure a real chat application. That's simply not how it works. But for this demo, it allows me to show you fairly quickly. It allows me to just give you access. I love that we have Steve Ballmer in the room here with developers. But remember that I need to sort this descending again, that I can still, in this console, type anything I want, right? So if I say smoky here, because it's smoky outside, it still shows up here. Because I'm in a trusted environment, right? I'm a collaborator on the project. I'm allowed to do this. And apologies if I just overwrote your message with my smoky, by the way. Feel free to change it. I can see people are actually already typing a lot of things here. Right, you're editing your own messages. If you're in the chat app, just hit submit. It will add a new message to that. Okay, we covered a lot here. I'm going to close this one. Move this here. So I'm also going to leave this one up for a bit so that you can look at it. But we're going to go back to the slides for a moment. Okay, so remember this screenshot? I think we just replicated that. The messages are different, but the app is the same. And we've used Cloud Firestore to do that. So the second database. So we've just used 2 databases to build 2 applications. So that's what you were promised. So that's a good thing. But there's more that we can do, right? This is honestly sort of the bare minimum of an app. I know that if you've never done this before, your mind is bubbling with ideas right now, right? What else can I do with it? Well, one of the first things you're probably going to want to do is allow the user to sign in. Because right now it's very anonymous and I couldn't see who did something. Right? And now we probably want users to sign in, which is easy with Firebase, right? It can be a one line. We can do a full sign-in UI with where you can sign in with an email link, email password, your phone number, your Google account. It doesn't matter which one. And then you can actually know who sent the message. And if you do that, you can also start securing access, right? So that people can only change messages that they wrote. Right? For example, that they can update their own messages, just like you would have in WhatsApp or in other chat apps. Right? You probably might want to add the ability to upload images, right? So that we can share images with each other. And you use cloud storage for that. You might want to actually deploy this because right now this runs on StackBlitz, and I think that's amazing. But Firebase has a hosting product, and that hosting product is actually then available worldwide. So this app could be running on your own domain somewhere. You would share it with others. Now, I'll admit, I tested this yesterday. I would normally have shared this on hosting. It didn't work. So there might be an issue on StackBlitz. So I'm actually in communication with the StackBlitz folks to see what is happening there. But you can still deploy it through other ways. Just right now, through StackBlitz, maybe you have a better idea of what's happening than I do. That might not work. And finally, you might want to use Cloud Functions. Because the way I was detecting good messages, it leads to a rather boring chat, as you might see, right? Cloud Functions allow you to run JavaScript code on Google servers. And this means that, right, when we run the code in StackBlitz, and when we write it, we can trust that code, but somebody else might copy our configuration data and run it with their own code. With Cloud Functions, that's not the case. Only you can deploy code to Cloud Functions. That means that you can trust the code. So you could use Cloud Functions to do a stronger validation on the chat messages. Or you could call one of the many cloud platform APIs, for example, natural language API, to detect if there's any negativity in the message. We could, for example, check message length and see what happens there. Right? So these are just some of the projects you could be using. Right? You could use extensions and translate your messages into multiple languages. Okay. And you can use all the other products in Firebase to quickly build apps. So we built 2 apps in slightly over an hour. I took my time. And if you've never used Firebase before, this typically is an eye-opener, right? This is not normally what you get performance-wise. But this is actually what you can do. Firebase empowers you to build applications quickly. We do that by allowing you to focus on the application code that you want to write instead of focusing on servers. Not once did you see me look at, oh, is my server running, right? Firebase took care of that for us. Okay, that's all I had today, which is good, I think. I do have some next steps for you. I'm going to leave this slide up for a moment. And that means that, let's see. If you want to sort of do this yourself, we have an amazing code lab for that. Now, I had sort of a hard time finding an easy link for you to find it. So this was the easiest I found, which is you go to firebase.live, which is the website we used for an event we did 2 months ago. And you click on the week 1 code lab. And in that, you build a site like meetup.com. We have an event page, and you have a guest book in there. And a guest book is pretty much another name for a chat app. So we have a video of one of our engineers talking you through that, and we have the code lab that step-by-step walks you through doing that. If you're comfortable with that, go to firebase.google.com, where I started, and we have lots more ways to actually write data there. And if you want to follow me, I tend to share a lot about Firebase, but also about other things going on. I'm on twitter.com/puff. Okay, and now I need to hand off to my host, but I forgot who's hosting for me. So please moderate.
I will take care. We will go from here. Thank you so much, Puff. I think.
Perfect.
We have the Q&A. I will start to share my screen. 1 second.
Okay, and I'll stop sharing mine in that case.
Yeah, 1 second.
Now I can see all your faces again. That's really nice.
Yeah.
Hey, everyone.
Okay.
Also, my fingers are hot from so much typing.
Okay. Yeah. And we have Hannah and I think Pavani presenting the questions. Are you ready? Everybody ready for the questions?
Oh,
so
no,
all the questions, please make sure you post them in our Slido. We will not go through the chat because the questions get buried. You can go to copy them and paste them in our Slido. So, oh, wait a second. I'm in the right one. 1 second.
You've been doing this too often, Linda.
I think I was in the right one. Okay. Perfect. So I will head it over to Hannah and Pavani, I think.
Perfect.
All right, cool. So first question, how to manage our costs better using Firebase. I've heard many people rake up a huge bill just because their applications usage suddenly spiked. What do you recommend?
First off, great question, because we get this one quite regularly, and there are definitely ways to deal with this. One is to always think about how the cost of your app will change as you get more users. This is one of the reasons you saw me get only 10 chat messages, right? Because when I was typing my own chat messages, there weren't a lot of messages, but then when everyone in the meeting realized that they could enter their messages, right, they were editing a lot of messages, and that's fine because I was only getting the last 10. But if you don't do that, right, if you actually would load all chat messages, then as you add more users, right, let's say that we went from 10 users to 100 users, I have 10 times as many chat messages. I have 10 times as many people reading those chat messages. So I have 10 times more usage. So that's called exponential usage. And if you do some back of the napkin calculations or use our pricing calculator, you will actually see that, right, you then have exponential cost, and that's not what you want. So one way to do that, for example, is if you know that you always show the last 10 chat messages, is to actually create in your chat room, either in the chat room document or in a new document, a set of a document that contains the last 10 chat messages. And now you know that everyone only needs to read one document to see those last 10 chat messages. Now, it doesn't mean that you need to update that document every time. And Cloud Functions are a great way to do that. So that's one way to control the cost. To be aware of the cost, right? This is how you do it in code, but to be aware of the cost, you can set up billing alerts. Right? And I highly recommend you do that from like day one. In fact, in a new project, by default, you get warnings. So on the new project, the Weather SF project, I've immediately set up a billing alert. And that means that if my app goes viral, right, if I get these like million users, then I get an alert that my cost is going up, and I can determine if that is expected and intended, or if I need to maybe take some action on my app and change it to be better suited for that. Now, the good news is about seeing in the news how many Firebase apps, right, that people encounter like a cost explosion, is that there's also some great tutorials of how to control this. So what I just described is one way to do that. This is one, for example, that Jeff Delaney, one of our Google developer experts, explains very well on his fireship.io website. So I highly recommend you search not just for the site that complains about the problem, but also for sites that offer solutions. Just like our documentation, but there's definitely more out there that explains this. If you encounter this, always reach out to our support. We are not in the business of like leaving you hanging there, but you will need to make sure that your cost becomes more normal to your usage. Right, but just reach out to us and we'll try to work with you and help you get it under control as quickly as possible. Great question. I'll try to not answer all of them as long as this one, though. Anna or Pravani, who's next?
The next question is, I want my web app to be dynamic, so how to do that in Firebase?
I'm not sure what that means, given that both of my web apps just now were very dynamic. So maybe somebody can clarify in chat or in some other way. I'm just not sure I understand the context, sorry.
It was by Arjun. If he's in the call, can you just clarify in the chat, please?
Otherwise, we can come back to it later also, of course.
Yeah.
But the app that I showed you was dynamic, right? It was reading content from the database, which is how I understand the dynamic app. That's why I'm not sure how else to clarify. If there's some other type of dynamic that you want, just clarify in the chat and we'll get back to it, okay?
We can go to the next question in the meantime.
Okay.
All right, so next question from Free Thinker. I'm concerned about a vendor lock-in by Google once my Firebase solutions grow. Can I change the vendor if I'm not satisfied with Google over time?
Great question, Free Thinker, as usual. And we've seen this one before, so I know how to deal with it. So your data is your data. It's not our data. So you can always get your data out of Firebase. That is not a concern, right? And even if you, right, some products might have limits of how much you can pull out at once. Even if you reach our API limits and you want to leave us, we'll help you get that data out there. For example, for a long time, we didn't have an API to export users. We now do. And we would actually manually export users if people want to go to a different provider. So that's all taken care of. That still leaves you, though, with finding a compatible provider. And I don't think those exist. There are similar providers, but nobody that offers all of these products in one place, which we think is a unique selling point for choosing Firebase. But unfortunately, it means that if you choose to leave Firebase, you have to change some of your code to fit with the new provider that you use or that you build. Great question.
The next question is, how can I use Firebase with Flutter?
Ooh, that's a really fun one because we have one expert on the call, I know. But Firebase actually works really well with Flutter, and we've had some exciting updates even as recently as this week. We love working with the Flutter team at Firebase. We honestly do. We often get indeed questions because we don't promote it too heavily on our website. And Paul just indeed pasted a link. The reason we don't promote it too heavily is we don't want to upset any other technologies. We like working with all technologies. You saw that I like working with JavaScript, but I'll admit my most recent web app that I'm building is a Flutter web app with Firebase. So, and Paul and I are working on a very cool one for that also. We do have libraries that allow you to access many Firebase products from within Flutter. And they're called Flutterfire. So if you Google Flutterfire or follow the link that Paul pasted in the chat, you can see that one. We actually now have I forgot the URL, but there's a new documentation site for our binding libraries. And you have to forgive me, you have to search for it unless Paul can quickly find it. It just came out this week. And that has full documentation also of how to integrate it. So honestly, this is probably some of my favorite Firebase documentation right now, because for one, I didn't have to write it. And number two, also, it's actually really good and focused on Flutter. So you can use all the products I just highlighted in Flutter and many more also. I highly recommend, honestly, using Flutter with Firebase. We see it's like peanut butter and jelly. It's a great combination for building cross-platform mobile apps, because Flutter allows you to build cross-platform UIs, and Firebase then allows you to do cross-platform backend services. So, great question.
All right, so I believe the next one is by Neve. So what would you recommend on where to start if you have no experience in writing code?
I love this one because I think this is from my nephew who joined the call. So, hey, Luke, you can actually get started on the link that I shared. So if you go to firebase.live and click on the code lab for week 1, this is a great getting started experience. This talk, right, that I gave is precisely to like show people that you can get started, right? If I can do it on a call like this, right, with all of you, then if you watch the recording and follow along, you can build the same. Right? I don't doubt that for one moment. You may get stuck, in which case always like go to one of our community support channels like StackOverflow or Reddit, right, where we support developers all the time. And when I say we, that's all of us, by the way. That's not just the Firebase team, that's all developers, right? We are, together with Flutter, probably some of the most welcoming communities. We love it to see new people that are new to development building apps like this. So that's a great place to get started, because it really assumes you have no prior like extensive programming knowledge, but mostly it also requires that it doesn't require you to have any tools installed, because as you saw, you can just open stackblitz.com and firebase.google.com and get started.
I think I accidentally archived another question instead the one that was asked, and I really apologize. I don't know which one was. I will see behind the scenes if I can bring it back.
Perfect.
So the next question is, I was thinking to use Firebase for a Write app project. What recommendation do you have in order to secure it and to use it effectively to read and write data?
That's a really, really good question. Eoisias. I hope I pronounced that correctly. It's a really good question, mostly because I've been working on some of this week. There were some more questions about it. And we see a lot of ride-sharing apps using Firebase. Ride-sharing and Pokemon Go type apps are some of the ones we see a lot that have to do with geodata. And Firebase, neither real-time database nor Firestore has native built-in support for geodata. So you end up actually working around the limitations of the database, but that's totally possible. Because for both databases, there are add-on libraries that use something magical called a geohash to make the impossible possible. And a geohash is a value that encodes a latitude and longitude, the two things that you need to determine location on the Earth, into a single value. And then you can find items within a range of these. You can use these to then essentially find items in, like, if it's a ride-sharing app, around your current location, for example. These libraries are called GeoFire or GeoFirestore. That's the most common one for them. And this is how you get started. Securing it, that was your specific here, is slightly tricky, as in you need to realize that in order to be able to query data, you need to be able to read that data with Firebase. Right? We don't have server-side geoqueries, so you need to be able to read the data on the client. So I typically recommend using the real-time database for securely querying GeoFire data. And the reason for that is that in there, we recommend that you separate your geodata, which is like, here's my latitude and longitude. You separate it from the other data, which is like, here's the name of the driver or something, right? Here's the color of their car. And by separating those, you can more easily secure them. So that's the way I would recommend doing that. If you have a data model and want to validate that against us, post either on StackOverflow or on our Google group, the mailing list that you can find on firebase.google.com/community, I think. So would love to see more about what you're building there. Great question. I really like the next question also. Who's going to read it?
Yeah, sorry, I'm here. So the next one is basically going to be, are there any trial versions for Firebase to explore, or is it all paid?
And I feel so bad when I get this question because it means that I forgot to highlight it well, which I tend to do. Firebase is completely free to get started. So nothing I showed you today, my projects were on the free plan. I haven't paid a dime for this. In fact, some of my oldest Firebase projects are still on the free plan, and they get regular usage, not heavy usage, but regular usage. They all come with a free tier, as it's known, a free quota. So for the real-time database, that's like how much data can you store for free and how much data can you read and write for free, right? And for Firebase authentication, for example, that's almost completely free. Like only once you start using phone number authentication, because we need to send text messages, do we have like a free quota, and after that you have to pay. Let's see, what other did I use? Hosting has a great free tier. Probably, I haven't checked in a while, but for years, over 99% of the projects on Firebase, like over 99% of our users, never pay us a dime. We have no problem with that percentage whatsoever. We do like onboarding new users, though, right? That's what we want. We hope that your project is successful and that you then upgrade it, but you can get started for free without like anything, without entering credit card details. The only place that you can't use without entering a credit card right now is Cloud Functions. That's something to keep in mind. One thing, if you're afraid of like hitting the price hike that people asked about earlier, is that we have a local emulator suite. So you can run many products locally, like the real-time database, Firestore, authentication, and Cloud Functions. And that means that you're not even hitting your Firebase project on the server. You're running everything locally, so you never be charged anything for that anyway. And that's great for both local for development, but it's also really great for doing some tests on like how would my usage explode if I onboard like this many more users. You can do some tests locally. You can see in the local emulator UI how your usage would be built, but you will never be paying for that. So great question.
The next question is there any specific online course to master the Firebase, or could you suggest, please?
There's no shortage of great learning material about Firebase. And I'll admit our documentation is great once you know the basics. It's not always great to get started. We are working on that. We hope to have a great landing page for that later. The community page that I mentioned earlier is a good place to get started. The Firebase.live and then the code lab in week 1 is another great place to get started. We also have some great code labs on our site. So if you search for Firebase code labs, there's a lot of like ways to practically get started, right? Without just reading documentation. And then I'll do a plug for one of our Google developer experts. Fireship.io is the documentation that I wish I could write, or the videos I wish I could record. Those are not just some of the best technical content out there, it's also very easy to learn with that. So I highly recommend also checking out Fireship.io. Great question.
I got lost which one I have to archive. If you can give me a hand, which one?
I think we're down to the
They are
third.
jumping. The first one was asked already. This one?
I think so.
Yeah.
We're on to the next one, right?
This one? No. Okay, you can go.
I think that's the one. All right, so basic prerequisites for applying Firebase GDE program.
Thank you for being interested in that. It's always great. Many people on the Firebase team actually came from the Firebase community, and I'm one of those, just so you know. Paul is another one of those. Paul was a Google developer expert because he can't be that anymore right now because he's now a Googler. So we love it when people are so excited about Firebase that they want to do more with that. And I actually don't know where the application page is. Paul might be able to share that from memory. But the basics is that you are very active in the community. And it helps if you're in a community where we don't have a lot of Google developer experts yet. Right, so either geographically or a group, a community that we just don't have a lot of people yet. If that's the case, just apply and you will hear about any specifics we have. I don't think we are that special, but I must admit, people then sometimes say that we are, so I don't know anymore. And it's fun. I love meeting with our GDEs, both online. We do quarterly meetings with them, but also in person, because it's a great set of experts. And we love it when they are representing Firebase in the community. So, great question.
The next question is, can we have the best practice docs for Firebase, please?
Best practices are a bit hard when you're a platform, right? It's like saying, what's the best practice to build a relational database? It's like, oh, well, that depends on what you need. So we have lots of tutorials, but I'll admit most of my favorite tutorials are by the third-party developers, which is not a mistake. We really like that. But it's normally, so I'd recommend essentially looking for like, cool, what are you trying to build? And then doing a search on your favorite search engine for like, who has written about that? Then if you get stuck in specific places, right? Like the billing question we had earlier, it's like if you get stuck in like, hey, I see that my usage is going up way faster than what I expected, that's a great moment to reach out to us on one of our either community support forums like StackOverflow or our subreddit, or to reach out to our free support team, because they will also help you with that. Paul manages part of that team. They love getting these types of questions because we really like explaining how Firebase works, but also how it works for you, right? How you can use it best to build that type of app. Aside from that, our documentation has best practices, but I must admit those typically are easiest to understand once you've sort of violated them, right? We have this logic of like keeping your data structure flat in the real-time database, not nesting too deeply. You learn why that is important after you've accidentally nested too deeply a few times. So that's how I learned about it. And we try to make it as easy as possible to then help you get out of that situation. So reaching out to us might actually be the best practice. We are very active in our community. I was like 10 minutes before I joined the meeting, I was answering questions on StackOverflow. So. Next question. All
right. So am I required to specify a default timestamp value when setting a timestamp field in Firestore?
It's a really good question. I'm not kidding about that one, because I actually just recently realized how it works. And between us, we are just with friends here, right? We can keep this secret. I don't like how it right now works, so I need to write a proposal for how I want it to work. Because right now, if you use server-side timestamps, I don't think you can easily specify a default value for the client. And I don't think that is how we want it to work. So I need to actually figure out if accidentally we broke something there. If we did, then we need to fix it. If I just misunderstood how it works, then we need to describe it better. But as far as I know, you cannot set a default timestamp. Paul might know if I'm wrong there, in which case either in chat or unmute. And always feel free to correct me. I know a lot about Firebase, but I'm definitely not all-knowing.
The next question is how to make dynamic web hosting. Sir, I came to know that it only supports static pages. I think it's a follow-up for the question that
It is, and thank you so much for clarifying, Arjun, because that indeed makes it clear. And sorry for not understanding that earlier. I should have realized that. So Firebase hosting only serves static resources. That is completely correct. So it serves like static JavaScript that is not interpreted on the Firebase servers, but only in the browser. With that, you can build very dynamic web apps, like we just saw, right? The JavaScript was like in itself just static JavaScript, but the browser used it to make a very dynamic website. So that's one way to do that. But actually, Firebase hosting also integrates with Cloud Functions and Cloud Run. And you can use that combination to then build part of your functionality on Cloud Functions or Cloud Run, so either in Node or in like any language that Cloud Run supports, and build microservices that way. This is a really amazing way to integrate dynamic backends with, sorry, we had a great description of it earlier this week by one of the team members with, for example, the caching that Firebase hosting does. So say that you render some like dynamic content in Cloud Functions and you render it on the server, then the response that you have is cached on the global CDN. So it's cached close to the user so that they get the cached response if they hit it. You can determine when to refresh that. It's a really, really great way of combining the two. And if you go to the Firebase documentation, then under hosting, there's an integration with, or there's a section about microservices. That's where you'd find this. And it should be under the integrations with Cloud Functions and Cloud Run. It's done through the Firebase.json file, if we want to get fully technical. Great question, and thanks for the follow-up, Arjun.
All right, so the next one is, can we have a session on Flutter with Firebase for the best full app?
I think we had one about a month or two ago, right? Because Paul did one on that. So I highly recommend that you check out the recording. Or between us, later this year, we'll have the Firebase Summit, which is our annual Firebase conference. And secret, Paul and I will actually be giving a talk there about how to use Firebase and Flutter to build a very cool application. I'm really excited about that one. It's what I work on when I'm not preparing for this talk. Really, really fun to do. So, but Paul's talk that he gave here is a really cool talk. I learned a lot about that. Actually, Paul is sort of my mentor when it comes to understanding Flutter better. So I'm really happy with that too. And the link was shared in the chat. If you're not in this chat, then you can also find it by just searching on YouTube.
The next question is, can the apps you made today be converted into a mobile application that can be loaded into the Apple or Google app stores?
They can, but I would probably not do it this way, though. You can use tools like Ionic and some of these to run JavaScript like I wrote today in a native mobile environment. I would probably use different tools. I would probably, if you like JavaScript a lot, to use something like React Native for that. We have bindings for React Native. Just like the SDKs I showed today, you could use React Native and then build something. You wouldn't be writing the code in StackBlitz. That's one of the reasons I did a regular web app today. But you would be writing React code. And I do that regularly. That's one of the ways to do this. Nowadays, I must admit, I actually use Flutter regularly. And Flutter, of course, allows you to do a native web app and a native mobile with a single code base. And that's also really cool to work with. So yes, you can definitely convert these into native mobile apps. You will see that your web application starts to behave more and more like a native mobile app, by the way, in that case, right? And you would essentially, I would always publish it as a PWA, like what we saw today. And then maybe also create a native mobile version of that to get my users from the app stores, right? So that I'm also findable in the app store. But that's very possible, which is one of the things I love, because a few years ago, this was a lot harder than it is today. This is one of those places where app development keeps evolving and it keeps getting more exciting.
All right, so next question is, how are you so energetic, Frank?
I always joke that it's part coffee. No, I'll be completely honest. I have the best job in the world. I'm a very experienced developer. I love developing, but one of the things I found is that I love it even more if I can help others develop. So my day starts at 6 a.m. by answering questions on StackOverflow, and it's the happiest part of my day, right? It's like I just love seeing what people build. I love seeing where they get stuck. And the same here, right? I see so many great questions, and I just love seeing what you build. So I often end my talks with, I can't wait to see what you build next. That's really, really true. This is not a marketing slogan. It's like I really love seeing what people build. With Firebase or without it, I just get employed to be most excited about the part where you use Firebase. And I think Firebase is awesome. That's why I love using it. So thank you for the question.
I think you answered this question, but I mean, if they want to clarify again, are there any trial versions for Firebase to explore, or is it all paid?
Yeah, I feel so bad. So I'm happy that they show up. I clearly need to remind myself to focus on this more, because no, please get started today. I really am not kidding. You don't need a credit card. This is one of the reasons we try to not always show our Google connection too explicitly. Firebase is free. We have no plans to change that. We have no plans to make it that you need to pay to get started with Firebase, right? You can get started today, do everything that I've done for free. Like nothing I did was on a paid plan. In fact, I had to downgrade. I created a new project that accidentally was on our paid plan, and I had to downgrade it, which was unusual because I normally start on a free plan. It was a weird flow where I answered wrong. I, by the way, saw that there was a question about what my Twitter is. It's twitter.com/puff, P-U-F.
We will share all of this info with a follow-up email with how you can contact Puff and everything else. It's shared during the event. Thank you.
Perfect. Do we have more questions?
Looks like, yeah. So the next one is, when the app updates the database, it is overriding the previous data machine or data each time. How can we save the time and whether each time the user records it?
Got it. Sorry, I had to think for a moment because I was actually thinking of the chat app in my mind. You can, so when I used set, there is another method called push. And if you call push, it creates a new child node under the previous one. And that would have been another way to get the history very easily. One of the fun facts is that those push IDs, they're very long strings. Try to not understand them, but one of the magic traits they have is that they have a timestamp encoded in there. So they automatically show up in the right order. So real-time database also support queries because we could have done on the right, instead of set, we could have done push with the same data. And then we could have listened to just the latest value. Right, so we could have said limit to last one, and then we could have just gotten the latest value with a completely history behind it. And then when you start adding things like adding the authenticated user in there, right, that's when you see what it gets like a real app, right? Because now it's not just a single user, right? We could start like keeping track of who wrote what value. We can start allowing certain users to update like only the data in their area, for example, right? And we can start building a more complex data model because, as you probably realize, most databases don't just store a single string value, right? That was a very unique use case that I picked there. Next question, please.
The next question is Flutter or Kendo React?
Ooh, Firebase is very opinionated about its own API and not at all about what you use. So I use Flutter, but that might be because I don't know Kendo React well enough, right? So this is one place where you have a chance to teach me better why Kendo React is awesome. I have my own favorites, but you will see that, for example, I just like writing plain JavaScript because then it can work anywhere. I do like Flutter, but that's mostly because it allows me to do cross-platform mobile with a single code base. And from the sound, it could be that Kendo React also does that. So I would love it if you share a link with me of like right where I can go to learn more about Kendo React, because you might have just taught me my next favorite technology.
All right. So the next question is, how can we download certificate from Firebase and use in local app, as mentioned in the Sunny/Foggy?
I need to think for a moment what this means. I'm missing some context here. So if you deploy to Firebase hosting, we're going to try and answer it, right? If this is about HTTPS certificates, so you can deploy that web app to Firebase hosting. That's like a one-line that you run on your local machine, or if it works from StackBlitz directly. And everything will be served over HTTPS with a certificate, right? We, by default, configure Let's Encrypt certificates for every website on Firebase hosting. In fact, all of Firebase, since day one, since we were in beta, has always gone over secure connections. We will never expose your data to anyone else. That is like one of the promises we've made from day one. It was a bit more unique back then than it is today. Luckily, by the way, we're very glad that others also do that. Now you can set up your own domain for that, right? So by default, it would have been something like weathersf.web.app, or but you can set up your own weathersf.com or whatever right domain is available for that. And in that case, you can even set up your own SSL certificates, because Let's Encrypt uses shared certificates. You can even set up your own certificate. You will have to bring that and reach out to our support team, and they will help you set it up. It's really one of the cool things that I love about Firebase hosting, and it's one of our most popular products also. If, by the way, that's not what you asked, and it seems like we're running low on time, definitely ask again in one of our community support channels like StackOverflow or Reddit, and we'll try to address it better there also.
Okay, the next question is, just for reinforcement learning, why did you use real-time for chat and Firestore for the weather app?
I love the questions today. It's a really good question, Ivan. I have to think a bit, because both of them would have run fine on both databases. When I first did this talk, I did both on Cloud Firestore. I'm trying to show people more of what you can do on the real-time database also again, because people thought that we didn't love the real-time database anymore. That's not true. We still love it. In fact, this morning I was reviewing an API proposal for a really cool change that we're going to make. So the split is we have a database recommender, and mostly we tell you, it's like, does your app do many small writes to like sort of the same type of location? If so, real-time database is typically a better choice. But with the real-time database, you have to realize that we have some hard readability limits. So you can have 200,000 concurrent users, and believe me, that's a lot. Hardly anyone reaches that. But after that, you will have to think about how to scale that. Firestore, on the other hand, doesn't have that limit. It has an unlimited number of listeners. It's like 1 million, but we can work with you for these limits. And that's because it has a stricter data model, and because it actually has throughput limits on writes. So you can't do as many writes to Firestore as you can do to the real-time database. And the reason for that is not that we can't make it faster, but it has to do with how we then, we optimized for concurrent reads, as it's called, versus read and write at the same time. So I would say many small writes, real-time database, a very unknown number of users, and we think massive scale reading users, Firestore. I often honestly pick the one that people ask about because both can work great for most use cases.
All right. So the other question is, how does Firebase stand out from the cloud computing platforms such as AWS?
It's a really good question too. Let me think what I can say. What can I say there? I think one of the things you see is that we have an integrated suite, right? We integrate our products very well. That typically also means, right? For example, I also like comparing it to Google Cloud Platform, right? Which is a closer comparison to AWS, I would say, right? We pick a smaller set of technologies that we support, and then we integrate them more closely. That's, I think, what sets Firebase apart from a broader cloud platform. But it does mean, for example, right, that Firebase doesn't have a translation API, right? We just don't have that. If you want that, we actually do, I realize now. MLKit does have that, but maybe not a natural language processing. We really have a lot of APIs, but right, we might not have some API that you want, right? And then you would use another platform. And we always try to make it easy to integrate with those other platforms, right? Of course, integrating Firebase with Google Cloud Platform, right, especially when you use Cloud Functions, is like as easy as it can be. One of the talks I've done is building a voice-to-voice translation app. So you would speak one language and somebody else would, on a dial, pick another language, and I would speak Dutch and you would hear English, right? And you can build that in half an hour, and that's just amazing with these cloud APIs. So it's one of the reasons I love Firebase, is that integrating with other technologies is actually part of one of the things we do best.
Pavani, you think? Okay. Next question.
Do you want me to read it for you? All right. So the next question is how would you connect your StackBlitz code to domain?
There I would actually use Firebase hosting. And this is one of the things, and StackBlitz integrates with Firebase hosting. As I said, I tried it yesterday and I just couldn't get it working in the single click that I wanted to spend on it. But it is a single click, right? If you open the menu on the left, you see a little Firebase icon. If you click on that, it will connect to your Firebase project. You log in, it will connect, and you just pick your project, and then it deploys to Firebase hosting. And there you can then set up your custom domain. So that's how you would share it with other people also. And if you go to Firebase.live and click on week 3, there's a code lab there where I recorded a video of using Flutter to build a web application. And there you can also see, because in one of the final steps, I deploy that web application to Firebase hosting. And it's the simplest thing ever. It's one of the things I love about Firebase hosting. It's one of our most used products because it's one of our simplest products. It's like a single command and you deploy an update to your website. Great question, Anonymous.
All right. So the other one is, can Firebase be used with Java and Spring Framework or guides? Is that?
Juice is the pronunciation. Yeah, it's a tricky one. Yes, it can, by the way. You always have to be aware of what you're doing there. So Firebase has admin SDKs, and admin SDKs are what you run in a trusted environment, like your development machine or on a server or in Cloud Functions. We have an admin SDK for Java. But what you have to realize is that you're running server-side code there. So often we get a question like, how do I sign the user in my Java Spring application? It's like, well, you don't, because they sign in the web application, right? And the web application then tells your Spring backend code about the signed-in user. And you can totally build that, but it's very important to realize what code runs where, right? Your JavaScript code runs on the client, your Java code runs on the backend. And once you realize that, you can use our admin SDK. And one of the things there is, right, that bypasses the security rules because your code runs in a trusted environment, so it's trusted code.
Okay, the next question is, what's the best architecture or tech stack of a complete app, both web and mobile?
Ooh, I always say Firebase, of course, but no, it really depends on what you're trying to accomplish and what technologies you're comfortable with, right? So you can see that we just had a question about Spring, and I haven't used Spring extensively in over 10 years. So I'm quite sure it's evolved a lot since I last used it, but it's a completely valid technology to use for building apps. I don't normally mind, I don't care which technology I use. I love many, my excitement spans many technologies, but I do really like, you need to learn essentially about what's client-side, what's server-side, right? And what's a NoSQL database, for example, in the things we covered today, right? These are the types of things that you will more have to understand than the specific technology that you use. Okay. I hope that answers the question. If not, I'll try to help you else further on Twitter or StackOverflow, for example.
All right, so the next one we have is, why does the data temporarily appear on my screen when Firebase rejects it due to rules? The data is not saved, so how is it read beforehand?
That's a really good question, Anonymous. I tried to explain it briefly, but we didn't have a lot of time. But what actually happens is that Firebase, the SDK, locally already calls your on or on snapshot method straight away. And sorry, I'm thinking of how to explain. So it does that straight away when the local set or add method runs. And that's when the UI updates. Only after doing that is the data then sent to the server. Then on the server, it runs against your security rules, right? And then the server, if it's a wrong value, the server says, can't do, right? It sends a negative acknowledgement, as it's known. And then the SDK, right, gets that back, and it says, oh, that means that I need to actually fix the local state. So it fires another on snapshot or value event with the old value that you had before. And this is really cool to see. I highly recommend playing with this, but that's why you see a brief flash, right? It shows the wrong value briefly on your screen, and it then reverts to the correct value. Keep in mind, this is not a security risk because that value came from your local screen, right? So there's no way that you can be using that to show a wrong value on somebody else's screen, because, right, everyone is seeing only the values from the database and their local changes. And their local changes, we have to assume, are made intentionally by them. So, great question.
Okay, the next question is, does Firebase make use of other programming languages?
I'm going to assume that this is whether you can use Firebase with other programming languages, and the answer there is yes, very much so. I focus on JavaScript here just because it was the easiest to get started with StackBlitz. But you heard us talking about Flutter, right? We got questions about that, so there you would be using Dart. We got questions about Java, and we have SDKs for that. We run in iOS, Swift, and Objective-C. Java, we do, Android, we do Java and Kotlin. We have SDKs for Go, Python, PHP. Pretty much, we try to be opinionated about our own API. We try to not be opinionated about what SDKs, what languages you can use with Firebase. So we have one of those rules that says we are there where developers are. And today that means that I'm on this call with all of you. But in general, that means that if a technology is sufficiently popular, we try to make sure we have the tools for you to use Firebase from it.
A quick announcement, we will ask another 5-6 minutes questions, and after we will try to close the Q&A because we are running out of time. Thank you.
All right, so is Firestore the same as NoSQL?
Good question. I wish I'd clarified that a bit more. So let's start with what we all sort of know from databases, right? We all know relational databases. We know the SQL databases of the world, right? MySQL, SQL Server, Oracle, DB2, right? All the big ones, we know those. That's what we were taught, right, in college. That's how I learned to data model. But there are actually more types of databases. And nowadays we classify all of those types of databases as NoSQL databases. So Firestore is a NoSQL database, just like real-time database is a NoSQL database. Because the reason is, well, by definition, NoSQL databases are like, if you don't just use a relational database, it's NoSQL. But they're actually completely different data models, right? You saw that in a real-time database, I had a hierarchy with values, where with Firestore, I had documents, right? And document was my defining unit. And so you have many types of like non-relational databases that are classified under NoSQL these days. And so today we saw a hierarchical key value store, as it's known, real-time database, and a document collection database, Cloud Firestore. And there's many more NoSQL databases. So Firestore is a NoSQL database, but there are definitely more types. Great question.
Okay, the next question is, what were the rules you used when setting the collection? Would you be able to post them?
I'm not sure what I did there. That was a question. If you can clarify in chat or ping me on Twitter, I will gladly share what I did. That's not the concern. It's just that I don't fully understand which part, but I'll gladly share anything that I've done, either that I showed but too quickly or that I didn't show. There's like no secrets were used whatsoever.
All right, so what are the major differences between Firebase and Kinvi?
I am quickly scrolling through what the Kinvi is, just so you know. I honestly don't know Kinvi. I cannot answer that in any useful way right now. Otherwise, I would have gladly answered, but I don't think I can do it justice with the 10-second scan that I just did of the page. Sorry about that.
Next.
Just to confirm, if we copy what you did and leave it up to StackBlitz, we are not going to get built, even if the app gets spammed by bots.
That's completely correct. That's a great question. And it's slightly different from the ones we had before, right? So no, indeed, you can do what I did today and there's no risk. If something happened accidentally, reach out to support or ping me on Twitter, right? If something goes wrong, just reach out to us. We will help you, right? We are not in the business of bankrupting developers. If you actually read some of those posts, right, how I got a 30K bill from Firebase, you often see at the bottom that it says that we help them get through that. Now, there's no guarantee there, but historically, that is what we do, right? The team that Paul manages, they have very, very broad guidelines on like how we help developers. If you get hacked in this way, our first goal is to help you not get hacked anymore, right? That's the first thing we do. And then we'll figure out the rest of it between each other, right? We don't want you to pay for something that you're not getting the value from, right? That's not our goal, right? If you made a mistake, like a very common one we see, right? When I said 100 users, 100 chat messages, right? It's exponential. Like if you made a mistake there, we just want to help you get rid of that mistake. And then we want you to continue using Firebase. And the best way we can do that is by working with you and not against you. So you'll find that our support team on cases like this, we are doing our best to be as flexible as possible indeed. I'm going to check what Paul said because I know his manager. And yes, I actually got that one from Cato indeed. Cato is our support manager, and we are not in the business of bankrupting developers accidentally, by the way. If you are getting extremely popular, Firebase will still cost you money, of course, right? But we are trying to make sure that it's in line with the value you get out of it.
All right, so similar question to Flutter and Firebase about how to get started with Android and Firebase. Any recommended starting points?
Definitely, definitely. We have a great code lab for that. So I would always recommend that. So just search Firebase Android code lab. So that's one way to do it. And there you'll build a chat application, just like I did today. But you'll be using a lot more bells and whistles of Firebase because on Android we have more features available. There's also a Udacity course. Now it's a bit outdated, I must admit. So that might not be completely up to date. You have to sort of like fill in some of the blanks. But that one explains a lot more about NoSQL data modeling also. And then finally, but that's sort of a self-plug. I think Paul was smiling. I did a 40-minute talk over 4 years ago at DroidCon San Francisco 2016, where I did essentially what we did today with StackBlitz, but then for Android. So I did file new project in Android Studio, and there was no copy pasting of any code in there. And we built a chat app there.
You can provide us with the link to follow up for the all the attendees. Right?
Will do, will do.
Perfect. Thank you.
Okay.
Okay, the next question. If you query 10,000 messages in a collection, but add limit X, does that mean you only use or pay X reads?
Yes, correct. So when I did the last 10 messages, I pay for the messages that are read, not that are scanned. The reason for this actually is how Firestore indexes data. So one of the reasons Firestore has limited support for certain query operations is because we will only perform operations where we can guarantee the performance to be what I said, right? If it's reading 10 documents out of 10 billion, the 10 is what determines the performance. And so in this case, you would pay for the 10 reads. Of course, if then somebody adds a message and you were using an on-snapshot listener, then you'll pay for the 11th read of that new message, right?
Okay, so I think we got to an end with our Q&A. If you have further questions, you can ping Prof in Twitter. I guess he will mention that you attended today's meetup and you had a question that was not answered. And I guess in his busy time, we'll find some moments to answer to your questions. All of us, we get more busy with all these online events and everything. You have to choose what you can do. So
I'll try to keep answering as many as I can. So thank you, Kartik, for sharing the link to CodeLab.
Okay, I'm going to get over to Hannah.
All right, awesome. Thanks, Linda. Yeah, that wraps up our Q&A. So shout out again, Frank, so much for joining us and giving us this wonderful presentation on how to use Firebase and StackBlitz to code those apps. And then also thank you to the attendees for joining us this afternoon. Definitely appreciate it. So without further ado, we have a raffle and a big prize giveaway. So yeah, the fun part begins. And I think it's Shema. I think you're up next to do this announcement.
Yes.
Yeah, I expect you to. Yeah, for sure. So now we need everyone to fill the survey for the raffle, and after that, like we can spin the wheel and pick someone to. Like few people to win some prizes. It's learning prizes, which is announced at the beginning. So yeah, so go on and fill the survey link. It's on chat, right?
Yeah, if somebody can check, send the links all over and all the chats will be great.
Yes.
Thank you. I think it's Anna. Anna, I think, are you ready? If not, we can go to Jennifer. If Anna is not ready. Jennifer, can you take over?
Hi guys, this is Jennifer from Hack Upstate. We have sponsored a GDG Capital Region, one of their events in the past, and we just want to plug, we will be hosting our first virtual hackathon centered really around the theme of showcasing upstate New York, and all the Capital Region guys are included in that. It's a really great place to work and live, and as a part of that, really bringing our tech community together, all the employers and all the tech talent, to also help people who are really in need right now and finding a job. So we're really going to be focusing on that, and it's just not going to be like a hackathon where you just hack on something for 24 hours and you submit it, but we're going to have like live workshops, career fair, like fun activities at night, including like a typing race, a whole bunch of other activities. So if you would like to register, just go onto our dev post and click register, and there will be also a Google form linked on that dev post. Thank you so much.
Okay, so up next is Anna.
Thank you very much. Today was wonderful. And if you want to apply your coding skills to a wonderful cause, we have a volunteer initiative from GDG NYC. We support Positive Planet Foundation, which basically helps underrepresented communities to start a business or support existing businesses with all kinds of programs like training, financial education. And it's a famous foundation in Europe, founded by an economist called Jacques Attali. And now one of the Google Cloud execs in New York City has become a president of the foundation for the US. And it's like a startup. So we have many positions available, from web development to business development, digital marketing, social media, whatever you want to contribute to, whatever you're passionate about, you can contact me. I will post my LinkedIn. Our team is very diverse. Out of 8 people, 6 are women. So we not only support diversity, we practice it. And I would love to get help. We already launched a site. We don't have a Firebase app yet. So fantastic talent here based on the questions. So please reach out, and thank you. Thank you, Puff.
So let's see what is next.
So I see there is a problem in the survey link there. If everyone can access the survey link.
I posted in Google Meet. If anyone can post it, it should work. I open it.
It works for me. Yeah.
If there is any problems with the link, please let me know. Because I opened the one that we have in our shared document and it's working. So please let us know if you have problems. So, and go ahead and fill out the form, because that's the one that we will use to collect the names for our raffle. So, and once again, I see that the answers are coming. We have like 34 answers. If anyone can share in YouTube stream the right link and in the other chats, will be great. Thank you. So I would like once again to take a moment to thank all our organizers. Here you can see all the GDGs and Women Tech Makers chapters that join us today to bring you this great event and bring you up with this wonderful hands-on creating 2 apps. Also, we would like to thank you, all the attendees from all over the world joining us, and not at least our, I think I don't have the right, I forgot to change the sponsors. Here I have. So the sponsors, I would like to thank once again for their prizes that are offering today to our raffle. And I will hand it over to Carol for to present the raffle, and after we will go. to the sponsors. Carol, are you ready?
Okay.
No, okay.
So for the raffle, we're going to be raffling for O'Reilly, the ebooks. And we also have a code for everyone to get 30 days full access to their online library. And I can post that in the chat. And we will also be raffling off for ROI training, which offers 4 Google Cloud certifications, the ACE and the PCE.
And the practicum to scholarships of 40% discount. And we have, again, the developer for women in tech, the salary negotiation. Who is presenting O'Reilly? Carol?
Do you want to present O'Reilly?
Please go ahead.
So everybody knows O'Reilly, and they're a major sponsor for us, so we thank them. As you can, I hope everybody entered the raffle so they can get the access for the books as well as the 30 days. The O'Reilly code.
There is a small presentation for each sponsor. If can be done, we can take care of, somebody else can take care of the codes.
The O'Reilly code, it's O'Reilly.com/get-learning.
Yeah, we will post it on chat, but please don't share it on the social networks. It's only for our attendees today. So we will share that code on our chat.
No, this is the link, and there is a promo code to follow.
Yeah. So can you do the presentation for O'Reilly, and after we go over? Thank you.
So yeah, you can get the 30-day free learning and O'Reilly books, all kinds of topics. Google Cloud Platform, prep courses, conference videos, playlists. So this is a value of $49. And as you can see, I shared the link with the promo code to follow. Is that going to follow up in an email, you said, Linda?
Yeah. We will send out an email to make sure that everybody gets it. So in order to make sure that our global community can keep learning, we want to offer all of our attendees today a free 30 days membership to O'Reilly online learning. So you can brush up your skills, and you will need in this rapidly changing world and dive into something new. You get 30 days free access to the entire library catalog of O'Reilly, which includes books, conferences, videos, lots of creative playlists, GCP prep courses, and more. A value of $49, as Anna says. And we will share with you the promo code in the chat.
And of course, you can win the 5 ebooks if you enter the raffle today.
Definitely. Thank you, Anna.
The ROI training, I've taken the ROI training. They're fantastic, a fantastic company, very capable trainers. They win every year. They win Partner of the Year at Google Cloud Next. And they're, of course, an authorized Google Trainer program globally. As you can see on the slide, they have trained over 85,000 people. And today, you can also win if you enter if you enter the form. Did everybody enter the form?
Yeah, we have 90 answers so far coming in through the form. So
yes, so yeah, as you can see, everybody is who uses the Google Cloud Platform has been trained by 600 plus Google customer engineers
on GCP.
And we're talking Google Cloud Platform. So 30 countries, 6 continents. Like I said, I've personally taken their courses, and they're fantastic.
This is their offerings. As you can see, there are a lot. So ROI.
The training is a wide range of technologies. As you can see, DevOps, cloud computing, Python, Java, project management. So you can start learning today. Do we have to share anything?
No, here we have promo codes. These are the courses that you will be able to choose. We have 4 promo codes that we will provide only to the winners. We will contact you via email because we are getting the emails through the form that we share with you today. Carol.
Yes, okay, I'm back. All right, so now we have Practicum by Yandex. It's giving away 2 scholarships with a 40% discount to Practicum by Yandex boot camps. And you can choose from web developer, data scientist, data analyst, and the codes are valid until September 6th. I believe this is the one that's only available for the US though.
Yeah, I talked with the sponsor, and they says that they are able to offer it all over the world, but in the US they have the carrier track only for US. So if you don't want to win one of the prizes, or you already have it, you can let us know, and we will skip you the raffle and give to somebody else your prize.
Okay, and they're also offering a 20% discount on the course for anyone here. You just use the promo code I am with a friend. And Practicum is a fully supportive remote boot camp, so you can land your ideal tech job. Students receive 24/7 support from tutors, code reviewers, and peers. They learn soft skills that'll get them hired and create up to 15 checks.
Okay, next.
Okay, now for developer, and Lauren Hansen are piloting a new groundbreaking program to get underpaid women in tech access to its award-winning salary negotiation program for no upfront investment as part of its new and innovative income share program. So women in tech have gone on to negotiate salary increases of 30, 65,000 and even 80,000 in a single negotiation with this program. So now you can do that too. And so you just have to apply today, and we have a link that we'll share, I guess, in the email website.
So did everybody fill out our form? I see 96 answers so far. Of course, we cannot go to the raffle, the organizers, but all our attendees in Google Meet and in YouTube stream, I think they already fill out the form. So if you need more time, let's see. Do we have anyone asking for more time? Otherwise, we will go to. Okay, so we will go to the raffle, and who was taking care of the raffle? I think we did all of this once. It's my fault because I forgot to update some slides, so that's why. So now we have raffle time. As you can see, we have 5 O'Reilly books that will go to the raffle. As far as everybody will get 30 days full access to the library, someone will share with you in chats the link with the promo code for O'Reilly. So we will have 5 books. We will have 2 practicum scholarships, 4 ROI training courses, and Develop Her, we will share the link with you. So we have 5 plus 2 plus 4, 9, 11 times to a raffle. So I will head it over to, who is taking care? Bhavani, who is sharing the?
Yeah, that's me. Yeah.
Okay. I head it over to you. I will unshare my screen. So did you was able to take all the names? We have 100 answers so far. So try to take the most up-to-date list and update your wheel.
Okay, give me a, yeah, I think I updated it, yeah.
Yeah, okay.
So the first winner is Kevin Everall. For
when did you do that?
Oh, I just now. You can see the names. Like
no, we just stopped to see your screen. Okay, that's okay. Perfect. Yeah. Please leave it for a second. For we have our people to write the names. If somebody can write. We didn't even says for what we raffle. So let's see. This was the one book for O'Reilly. So who is writing down the names? Write it for O'Reilly book. If Kevin can write in the chat that he's okay with his price.
I can post the names in the chat, like in chronological order as we spin the wheel.
Yeah, but we need somebody to write what they win, okay? So next, let's go for a practicum scholarship. So please remove, when you get the winners, please click the button remove so we don't raffle that people again. Okay?
Okay. Yeah, got it.
Next, so practicum. Woo! So this is for practicum. Congratulations. This is challenging for me with the prizes, with the names. Okay, next let's go for an ROI training course. This is easy, Kila. Congratulations. Okay, so next will be another book for O'Reilly. Congratulations. Yeah, yes, I think it is.
Oh, I'm sorry. Should I stop it?
No.
You could just announce it. What
yeah, I announce it. I think your screen is unshared, so please make sure you share again your screen, Pavani.
Oh.
We cannot see your screen again. It's coming. Wait a second, please. No, it's not sharing. Okay, wait. Yeah, okay, you are, you can go. So now we are doing the second practicum scholarship, okay? So let's see who is the winner. Real. Okay, now next we will have an ROI training. And next we will go, because we finished the practicum scholarships, we will go with another O'Reilly book. Congratulations. Next will be an ROI training. Can somebody keep account how many? Thank you. You're welcome. Can somebody count how many ROI training we gave already? So this is the next one. One second, please, with the prizes. I want to see how many we gave so far, because congratulations. So how many we have? Did anyone wrote the names and what they won, so we can have a account?
Yeah, I did, Karen.
Oh, okay. Thank you.
We have 3 ROI training winners, 1 more left, 2 practical winners so far, and 3 O'Reilly books winners.
That we gave away. So we have left 1 ROI and 2 books, right?
Yeah.
We have left, right?
Yes, yes.
Okay, perfect. So please, now let's go with another O'Reilly book. Congratulations. And now we have the last ROI training. I'm sorry, my tongue doesn't want to pronounce correctly. ROI training. This is the last one that we have. You are welcome, Mark. Love. Congratulations. Okay. And now we have the last O'Reilly book. You are welcome. Congratulations. Okay. Congratulations. I think this should be our last winner, if I'm right, for our calculations.
Yeah.
So for O'Reilly books, we have 5 winners. For practicum, we have 2 winners. For ROI training, we have 4 winners.
Okay, perfect. So we are done. We shared all the links. We will have a follow-up email for all of you. I will reshare my screen now. We will have a follow-up email with all the links that you need, that we shared during the event, and all the promotions. So once again, congratulations to all our winners, and we are looking forward to see you again next time. And thank you again to Frank or Poof or Puff. Thank you for joining us and being with us until the end.
Thank you for having me. It was wonderful.
Thank you again to all the organizers, to all the attendees, and to all our sponsors. If anyone else has something to add to it, I will mute myself. Oh, we have
the most requested prize is a personal training with Puff. A lot of people ask for that. We have to make a deal.
I'll gladly come back for a future episode, but I'm not sure if I can do personal meetings like that. It would not scale very well, but I'll gladly do another event like this, of course. I'd love that.
I would say if we want, we can close here the recording. If anyone wants to stay in the call and do some networking or just sharing some experience, we will close here the recording and the stream, so everybody can feel free to talk with anyone else on the call, with our speaker, with Puff, with Paul is here with us, and anyone else. So please feel free to unmute yourself.
Thanks everyone for coming.
Denise, unmute yourself. Anyone else?
Hey, Paul. What type of rocket do you have in the background on the wall?
That is the Saturn V. So it's the one that launched the lunar lander when we went to the moon.
Awesome.
Everybody's so shy. I don't want to talk anymore. I want to take a break. Can somebody else talk? Share with us what you did lately.
So how do you enter your name for the drawing, the spin?
We already finished the drawing.
I know, but I just entered Wheel of Names. It's there.
Yeah, because it's what you have in your computer, it shows. It doesn't show our wheel. Everybody, when you open the wheel, the website, it shows some fake users in the beginning. You can erase those, and you can put the ones that you have from the form. So we added the ones that we received from our form. That's how it works.
Oh.
I will show you. Give me just 1 second. So when you go to Wheel of Names, if I have some names from the other wheel that I did before, no, I don't have. Here I was playing. So you can go to erase here the names, and you add the names that you have from the form that you share with everybody. And you can shuffle, you can sort, or you can spin. There are many things. So that's how it works, this website.
That's what I did, but there's only 8 of us.
Yeah, you cannot have our users because only we have access. So you cannot have access to who is in the wheel. That's
you entered the competition for the survey and you entered the raffle by filling out the form for the survey of the meeting.
Oh,
that's why.
Explain.
Yeah, so when you fill that form, this is the form that we receive from everybody. When you fill it, that's the names. Okay, so.
See, now, okay, that explains why my name wasn't on the Wheel of Fortune.
No, it was in the wheel that we have shared on the screen. There was your name. It was not in your wheel that you have in your computer. I don't have the names that if I add all your names here, it will be. So you cannot have access to who is on our wheel. Only we have access.
Yeah, correct. I was wondering why my name was not on your wheel.
I didn't understand.
He didn't fill out the survey form, so his name wasn't in the raffle.
Ah, okay, makes sense. Yeah, so that's why.
Because I didn't know you had to fill out the survey form. That's what.
Yeah, that's why we share so we have to collect your names. Otherwise, we cannot put you in the wheel. We don't go to type in the names. We go to collect the names with this form. In this way, you can get access to the prizes to be drawn. Next time, I apologize for misunderstanding.
Okay, thanks.
You're welcome.
Oh, you still got the prizes that are for everybody.
Yeah. Okay, so let's wrap it up. If anyone doesn't have any other questions or something to share, if you want to share something you are working lately on. Linda from LinkedIn, what means that? Let's see.